Miles cancelled my flight in front of half the private terminal and gave my aircraft to his first love for a beach vacation. Vanessa Rourke walked past me with a straw hat, 2 white suitcases, and my husband's hand on the small of her back, while the gate agent whispered, "Mrs. Mercer, your authorization was used to release the jet." Miles looked at me like I was the embarrassing problem, not the wife he had just stranded. "Do not make this ugly, Nora. Vanessa needs this trip. You can take another flight." I did not scream, I did not chase him across the polished marble floor. I only took a photo of the changed passenger manifest, saved Vanessa's smiling post, slid my wedding ring into my coat pocket, and opened the hidden folder on my phone labeled Fleet Authority. By the time his plane lifted into the clean blue morning, I already knew exactly how to bring every aircraft he had touched back to the ground. The first thing I noticed was the suitcase. It was not mine, mine was black. Square, scratched near the handle from years of being shoved into executive cars and airport carts. The one beside the Caldwell Air counter was glossy white, stamped with gold initials, wrapped in a silk scarf the color of champagne. It looked like something made to be photographed on the deck of a yacht. I looked from the suitcase to the gate agent. Olivia's mouth tightened. That was when my stomach went cold. "Nora," she said softly, using my first name even though we were standing in the private terminal my father had built before I was old enough to spell aviation. "I'm so sorry. There has been a change." Behind the floor-to-ceiling glass, Caldwell Air Jet 6 waited on the apron, nose pointed toward the runway, silver body shining in the morning sun. It had been fueled for my flight to New York. I was supposed to attend my mother's foundation ceremony that afternoon, the first one since my father died. There would be donors, scholarship students, reporters, and a seat left empty in my mother's name. I had planned the flight 2 weeks ago. I had confirmed it the night before. I had packed the speech myself. "What change?" I asked. Olivia glanced over my shoulder. I turned. Miles was walking in through the glass entrance with Vanessa Rourke. My husband had one hand around his phone and the other resting lightly against Vanessa's lower back, guiding her as if she had no idea how to walk across a room without his protection. She wore a cream linen dress, oversized sunglasses, and a smile that became softer when she saw me. Softer, not smaller, softer, the way a knife could disappear into velvet. "Miles," I said. He slowed, not because he felt guilty, but because he was annoyed that I had noticed too early. Vanessa lifted her sunglasses to the top of her head. Her eyes were blue, wide, and damp-looking. She had built an entire public personality around being fragile in beautiful places. "Nora," she said, "I didn't know you'd be here." That was a lie so polished I almost admired it. "This is my flight," I said. Miles exhaled through his nose. "It was your flight." The terminal became too quiet. A father with 2 teenagers near the coffee bar glanced over. A pilot in uniform stopped near the hallway. Olivia looked like she wanted the floor to open. Miles stepped closer, lowering his voice in the way he used to do when he wanted me to believe he was protecting me from embarrassment. "Vanessa had a rough week," he said. "Her brand deal collapsed, and she needed to get away." Street Bart's was already arranged. "You can go commercial." My fingers tightened around the handle of my bag. "My mother's foundation ceremony starts at 4. "I know. Then you know there is no commercial flight that gets me there on time." His jaw flickered. That was the only sign he understood exactly what he had done. Vanessa placed a hand on his sleeve. "Miles, maybe I should just stay. I don't want to cause trouble." She said it loudly enough for people to hear. Miles turned toward her. At once, his face changed. It softened with concern that used to be mine. "You are not causing trouble," he said. Then he looked back at me. "Nora is upset, but she will be reasonable." Reasonable, that word had been the leash around my neck for 3 years. Be reasonable, Nora. Vanessa was part of my life before you. Be reasonable, Nora. My mother is old-fashioned. She does not mean to hurt you. Be reasonable, Nora. The company needs a strong public face, and you hate the spotlight anyway. Be reasonable, Nora. We are married. What is yours is ours. I looked at Olivia, who cancelled my flight. Her face went pale. Miles answered for her. "I authorized the change." "You authorized it under whose name?" "Do not start. Under whose name?" "Miles." His voice sharpened. "Mine. I run operations." I set my bag down beside the counter. "Show me the release." Olivia swallowed. Mrs. Mercer, I'm not sure I'm allowed to. I am the controlling owner of Caldwell Air, I said, still looking at Miles. Show me the release. Miles gave a short laugh. This is exactly what I mean. You turn everything into a boardroom when you feel insecure. Vanessa's expression trembled in practiced sympathy. I did not look at her. Olivia tapped the terminal keyboard with fingers that shook. A document came up on the counter screen. My name sat at the bottom, Nora Caldwell Mercer, Priority Release Authorization. The timestamp was 11:42 p.m. The previous night at 11:42 p.m., I had been asleep in my own bed after. Miles brought me tea. My phone had been charging on his side of the nightstand. I felt something inside me go very still. I took out my phone and photographed the screen. Miles moved fast. What are you doing? Saving the record. You do not need to save anything. It's an internal adjustment. You used my authorization. I used a routine release. Stop making this dramatic. Did I sign it? He stared at me for half a second too long. That was answer enough. Vanessa touched her throat. Nora, I swear I didn't know it was your plane. I finally looked at her. Every plane in this terminal is my plane. A small sound came from somewhere near the coffee bar. Not a laugh, not quite a gasp, just public discomfort turning into attention. Vanessa flushed. Miles stepped between us. Enough. The word cracked through the terminal. I remembered another version of him. The one who sat beside me in a hospital hallway after my father's stroke, holding a paper cup of bad coffee, telling me I did not have to carry Caldwell Air alone. The one who looked exhausted but loyal. The one I married 6 months after the funeral because grief made every steady hand look like love. That man had not stood in front of me for a long time. This one checked his watch. Vanessa's slot window closes in 12 minutes. He said, I will deal with you when I get back. When you get back from her vacation. His eyes narrowed. From making sure she is okay. She's going to St. Bart's. Miles, not surgery. Vanessa's lips parted. Miles's face hardened. You are embarrassing yourself. There it was, not I hurt you, not I am sorry, not I made a mistake. You are embarrassing yourself. I looked through the glass again. Captain Ellis stood near the jet stairs, speaking with the first officer. A ground crew member loaded the white suitcase into the cargo hold. My aircraft, my crew, my fuel, my company slot, my mother's ceremony slipping away minute by minute while Miles guarded his first love from the consequences of taking what was mine. My hand moved to my wedding ring. Miles noticed, his mouth curved with impatient contempt. Do not do that, he said, not here. I slipped the ring off. The diamond was cold from the terminal air. I had worn it through board meetings, funerals, charity dinners, sleepless nights, and all the small humiliations I had told myself were too minor to name. I placed it in my coat pocket. Miles stared for the first time that morning. He looked uncertain. I turned to Olivia. Print the release. Print the passenger manifest, print the fuel order, print the crew change. Now. Miles took a step toward the counter. Olivia, do not. Olivia froze. I did not raise my voice. Olivia, who signs your paychecks when the operating account is frozen? Her eyes widened. Miles snapped. Are you threatening staff now? No, I said. I'm reminding staff who owns the company. The silence changed shape. That was the thing about public humiliation. The humiliator always believed the room belonged to him until someone else spoke with more authority. Olivia printed the documents. The machine behind the counter hummed, each sheet sliding out with a soft mechanical whisper. Miles watched like paper had become a weapon. Vanessa shifted her weight. Miles, maybe we should go. He looked at the runway, then at me. He made the calculation in real time. Stop and fight now, or get Vanessa in the air before I did anything he could not undo. He chose her again. He took Vanessa's hand. I stood with the printed pages in mine. Nora, he said, low and cold, you will regret turning this into a spectacle. I didn't turn it into one. He leaned closer. You think you can punish me because you're jealous. You cannot ground a company because your feelings are hurt. That was the first time he said the word ground. I looked at the jet. Then I looked back at my husband. You're right, I said. I can't ground a company because my feelings are hurt. His shoulders loosened. But I can ground a fleet for falsified authorization, passenger misclassification, and misuse of owner-controlled aircraft. His face went blank. Vanessa tugged his hand. Miles. He recovered quickly. Too quickly. You have no idea what you're talking about. I smiled then, not because I was happy, because some doors only opened after you stopped begging to be let in. My father taught me what every switch in this company does. Miles's eyes darkened for 1 second. Nobody moved, then Captain Ellis called from the stairs, "Mr. Mercer, we need to." Bored now, Miles backed away. "We'll discuss this when I land." "No," I said, "you'll hear from counsel before you land." He gave me a look full of disbelief, disgust, and a small thread of fear. Then he walked Vanessa out. I stayed inside the terminal as the woman he chose climbed into my aircraft. She paused at the top of the stairs and looked back through the glass. Her sunglasses hid her eyes, but her smile did not hide anything. She lifted her phone. A minute later, my own phone buzzed. Vanessa had posted a photo of the jet wing, caption, "Some people know when you need to be chosen first." Off to heel. Miles had liked it. I screenshotted it outside. The jet door sealed, the engines started, the sound moved through the glass and into my bones. That roar had been the sound of my childhood, my father's work, my mother's charity flights, medical transports after hurricanes, college kids going home on scholarship travel grants, pilots who knew me when I wore braces and hid in the hangar. Office with math homework. Miles had turned it into a love note to another woman. I opened the hidden folder on my phone. Fleet Authority, Emergency Compliance, Owner Override, Legal Counsel, Fuel Account Master Access. My thumb hovered over Mara Chen's number. Mara had been my father's lawyer before she became mine. She had warned me, gently and repeatedly, not to sign broad operating powers over to Miles without weekly review. I told her marriage required trust. I pressed call. She answered on the second ring. "Nora, Miles used my authorization last night to cancel my flight and release Jet 6 to Vanessa Rourke." There was no gasp. Mara was too good for that. Instead, she said, "Are you safe?" "Yes." "Do you have documents?" "Yes." "Do you want me to preserve evidence or start revocation?" I watched Jet 6 begin to taxi for 3 years. I had chosen the smaller word, preserve, wait, review, discuss, understand. The plane turned toward the runway. Sunlight flashing along its wing. "Start." "Revocation," I said. Mara was silent for half a breath, then she said, "All of it." Miles's jet accelerated. My mother's ceremony was already lost. My marriage, I realized, had been lost long before this morning. I had only refused to read the manifest. "Yes," I said, "all of it." The aircraft lifted into the sky. I stood in the terminal with my ring in my pocket, my flight cancelled, my husband gone, and the first clean breath I had taken in years burning through my chest. Then Olivia whispered, "Mrs. Mercer." I turned. She held out one more sheet, one she had not shown Miles. It was the internal passenger purpose code. Vanessa Rourke had not been listed as leisure. She had been listed as emergency medical priority. I looked at the lie typed under my stolen authorization, and for the first time that morning, I understood this was bigger than betrayal. I did not leave the terminal right away. That surprised people. Humiliated wives were supposed to run, cry in the bathroom, call a sister, throw a drink, collapse into some recognizable shape of pain so everyone else could feel clean sympathy and go on with their day. I sat in the corner office behind the reception desk and laid the printed pages across the table. Olivia hovered near the door. "You don't have to stay," I told her. She looked down the hall, then stepped inside and closed the door. "Mrs. Mercer, I need to say something before I lose my nerve." That got my attention. Olivia was 26, sharp, careful, and usually terrified of saying anything not pre-approved by senior management. Miles liked employees who feared ambiguity. My father had liked employees who noticed problems before they became disasters. "What is it?" I asked. She folded her hands in front of her. "Mr. Mercer called operations at 11:58 last night. He said you had approved a passenger priority change. Beth asked for the owner confirmation. He said it was already in the system, at 11:58. Yes, the authorization was logged at 11:42. I know, so he got the system release first, then called operations." Olivia nodded. I wrote that down. She swallowed. Beth said the passenger purpose code didn't match the itinerary. St. Bart's, luxury resort arrival, no medical provider on board. Mr. Mercer told her to stop acting like a mall cop. Heat rose behind my eyes. Not tears yet, not anger yet. Something sharper. Did Beth object in writing? She put a hold note in the operations chat. It disappeared this morning. I looked up. Disappeared. Deleted. The thread says admin removal, only 4 people. Had admin rights to operations chat. I was 1, Miles was 1, Beth had limited manager status. The last was our IT director, who did nothing without written orders. My phone rang. Miles, his name filled the screen with the photo from our anniversary dinner 2 years ago, back when he still looked at me in public like I mattered. I watched it ring until it stopped. Immediately, a text appeared. Miles, do not embarrass me by ignoring my calls. I took a screenshot. Another text. Miles, you made your point. I will smooth this over when I land. Another screenshot. Then a third. Miles, do not talk to Mara. This is a marriage issue, not a legal issue. I almost laughed. That was the exact moment I knew he was scared. Olivia, I said, email me what you just told me. Use your personal account if you're worried about internal deletion. Include times. Do not editorialize. Facts only. Her eyes widened. Will I get fired? Not by me. That doesn't answer my question. I respected her more for saying it. Miles may try, I said. If he does, Mara will treat it as retaliation against a compliance witness. She let out a small breath. Thank you, I added, for printing the documents. Her shoulders dropped, as if she had been braced for blame. Your dad once helped my brother get a scholarship flight home when our mother died. I remembered. I looked down at the papers because I did not trust my face. My father had been a difficult man in business, demanding, exact, impossible when people were lazy with safety, but he had never forgotten that aircraft carried lives, not just schedules. Miles had forgotten because he had never loved the thing itself. He loved what the thing gave him: status, access, rooms opening, women like Vanessa smiling under private jet wings. I gathered the documents and stood. I'm going home. Olivia frowned. Are you sure? The press sometimes waits outside after Vanessa posts from the terminal. Then let them. I walked through the lobby with my suitcase in one hand and the folder in the other. 2 people tried not to stare. 1 failed. The father near the coffee bar gave me a look of awkward sympathy. His teenage daughter watched me with open curiosity, like she was waiting to see what a woman did after being publicly discarded. I kept my back straight. Outside, my driver, Sam, stood by the car. His expression changed when he saw me. Mrs. Mercer, I'm not going to New York. He looked toward the runway. I'm sorry. The simple dignity of those 2 words nearly undid me. I got into the back seat as the car pulled away from the terminal. My phone buzzed again. Vanessa had posted another story, a photo of Miles's hand holding a glass of sparkling water beside hers. Caption: some men remember who stood beside them first. The song behind it was one people used for romantic throwbacks. I saved it. Then I opened my bank app and checked the joint household account. 3 charges from the previous night: a resort deposit, a luxury villa hold, a boutique travel concierge fee, all paid with the Mercer Caldwell household card. My throat tightened. I had never minded paying for things when they were ours. I paid for Miles's mother's medical specialists, his sister's failed interior design studio, the down payment on the brownstone his family called the Mercer family home even though my trust had bought it. I had paid because my father used to say money should solve problems, not create theater, but at some point, I had stopped solving problems and started funding disrespect. I screenshot every charge, then I turned off shared location. A small gray notification appeared. Miles can no longer see your location. 5 seconds later, he called again. I declined. He called twice more before the car reached the house. The marital home stood on a quiet street lined with old trees and expensive restraint. It was a brick townhouse with black shutters, brass hardware, and the kind of front steps Elaine Mercer liked to photograph at Christmas. She always called it our family house when guests came over. My father's trust had paid cash for it. I walked inside. The house smelled like Miles's cologne, lemon polish, and the white lilies Elaine kept sending even though I hated them. A framed wedding photograph sat on the console table. Miles and I beneath an arch of flowers, his hand at my waist, my face lifted toward him with an expression I barely recognized. The woman in that photograph believed being chosen once meant being protected forever. I placed the printed flight documents over the frame, then I went upstairs. Miles's side of the bed was still unmade. On his nightstand sat a half-empty glass of water, his cuff links, and my charging cable. I stopped at 11:42 p.m. My phone had been charging here. I remembered the tea. Miles had brought it to me around 11. Chamomile, honey, 1 slice of lemon. He had been unusually gentle. He told me I looked exhausted. He told me to sleep. He said he would handle morning logistics because I had a big day. I had thought it was care. I opened the drawer of his nightstand. Receipts, a spare watch strap, a bottle of melatonin, an old boarding pass, and a small black device. My pulse slowed. It was a backup authentication key, the kind Caldwell issued for executive security. Mine was supposed to be in the safe in my office. I picked it up and turned it over. A tiny white sticker on the back had my initials, NC. For a moment, the room tilted. He had not just used my phone. He had taken my security key. The bedroom door opened downstairs. Nora, Elaine Mercer's voice carried through the house with the confidence of a woman who had never used a key she paid for herself. I closed my fist around the device and slipped it into my pocket. Elaine came up the stairs without waiting for an answer. She appeared in the doorway wearing pearls, navy silk, and disapproval. I heard what happened, she said, from Miles, from Vanessa's post. Actually, then Miles called, of course. Elaine looked past me at the unmade bed, the charging cable, the open drawer. What are you doing? Looking for my dignity. I found a security key instead. Her mouth tightened. Do not be vulgar. I'm being precise. She stepped into the room. Miles said you caused a scene at the terminal. Miles cancelled my flight. He adjusted a plane. He used my authorization. You are married. Married people share things, not federal compliance credentials. Elaine's eyes flashed. Do you hear? Yourself, federal compliance credentials. This is exactly why he didn't tell you. You make everything cold. I stared at her. She had always done that. Turn my clarity into cruelty, my boundaries into frigidity, my refusal to smile through insult into proof that I lacked warmth. I missed my mother's foundation ceremony, I said, because your son sent his ex-girlfriend to St. Bart's on my aircraft. Vanessa is not some random ex-girlfriend. She and Miles have history. So do Miles and I. It's called a marriage. Elaine waved a hand as if marriage were a minor technicality. You knew Vanessa mattered to him. I did not know I was expected to finance her healing vacation. She has been through a public humiliation. I laughed once. It came out dry. Elaine's face hardened. Do not laugh at another woman's pain, then stop asking me to pay for it. Her lips pressed together. You need to calm down before you destroy something you cannot rebuild. There it was again. Be careful. Nora, be calm. Nora, do not destroy. Nora, no one ever said that to Miles while he lit matches. My phone buzzed. Mara, revocation documents ready. Need verbal confirmation to suspend spousal operational authority and require dual authentication on all fleet releases. Elaine saw the name on the screen. Her face changed. You called a lawyer. I called my lawyer. This is a private matter. No. It became a legal matter when Miles used my security key. Elaine took a step forward. Nora, listen to me. Men make mistakes when they feel trapped. Trapped by what? By grief, by responsibility, by your father's shadow, by a wife who owns everything he works for. I went very still. There it was, not Vanessa, not a mistake, not a misunderstanding, resentment. The Mercer family had wrapped itself in my resources while hating the hand that provided them. Elaine saw that she had said too much. She softened her voice. I only mean Miles needs respect. A man cannot thrive if he feels like a guest in his own life. This is not his life, I said. It is mine. Her eyes narrowed. You would take everything from him because of one flight, one stolen authorization, because of jealousy, because of fraud. The word landed hard. Elaine looked toward the hallway, suddenly aware of the house, the cameras, the staff downstairs, the thinness of walls. You should be careful with words like that, she said. I am. I pressed call. Mara answered immediately. Ready? Yes, I said. Elaine's face drained of color. Mara's voice became formal. Do you, Nora Caldwell Mercer, as controlling owner of Caldwell Air Holdings and primary grantor of spousal operational authority dated May 18, 3 years ago, confirm immediate suspension of Miles Mercer's unilateral fleet release authority, financial travel authorization, and executive credential access pending review. Elaine whispered, Nora, don't. I looked at the wedding photograph down the hall. In it, Miles smiled like a man receiving a gift. I said, "Confirmed." Mara continued, "Do you also confirm immediate lockout of any security key issued under your owner profile until physical verification?" My hand closed around the device in my pocket. "Confirmed." Elaine's mouth opened. My phone chimed with system alerts. Miles Mercer, Fleet Release Authority suspended. Miles Mercer, owner credential access suspended. Security key NC04 locked pending review. Dual authentication required for all active aircraft. Elaine stepped back as if the phone had burned her. At that exact moment, Miles called again. This time, I answered. The aircraft engine hummed faintly behind his voice. He must have still been in the air. "What did you do?" he demanded. I walked to the window and looked down at the street, where the trees moved gently in the wind. Indifferent to the collapse of my marriage, "I revoked what you stole. You have no idea how much damage you just caused." "I know exactly how much damage I stopped. You embarrassed me in front of my staff. You embarrassed yourself when you stole from your wife." His voice dropped. "Do not use that word." "Which one?" "Stole." "Nora." Vanessa murmured something in the background. My entire body went cold. "You put me on speaker with her." Miles did not answer quickly enough. Vanessa's voice came through, soft and careful. "Nora, I don't want to be in the middle of this." "You are on my aircraft," I said. "You are exactly in the middle." Miles snapped. "Leave her out of it." I looked at Elaine, who was watching me with naked alarm for the first time. I understood that both of them had relied on the same belief I would never make them uncomfortable enough to stop. "You have until landing to send Mara the full passenger purpose explanation," I said. "If you do not, I will treat the medical priority code as intentional falsification." Silence. Then Miles said, "You wouldn't dare." That was his worst mistake. He still thought my restraint was fear. "I already did," I said, and ended the call. 3 seconds later, a message came from Curtis Bell, Caldwell Air's Chief Financial Officer. "Curtis, Nora, I think you need to see the discretionary travel ledger. It's worse than one flight." I stared at the screen. Elaine's voice came from behind me, smaller now, less certain. "What does that mean?" I picked up my bag. "It means your son did not just cancel my flight." Curtis Bell had been with Caldwell Air longer than I had been alive. He wore bow ties unironically, kept peppermint candies in his desk, and could make a tax auditor cry without raising his voice. My father trusted him because Curtis never rounded numbers to make people comfortable. When I arrived at the headquarters building, he was waiting outside the finance office with 3 binders and the expression of a man who had been hoping he was wrong. "I'm sorry," he said. I stopped in front of him. "Do not start with sorry, start with facts." His shoulders eased a fraction. "That sounds like your father." "It should." He opened the finance office door. Inside, the blinds were half closed, and the long table was covered with ledgers, printed expense reports, fuel invoices, crew overtime sheets, and corporate card statements. The sight made something in my chest harden. Facts were clean, ugly sometimes, but clean. They did not ask you to forgive them before they existed. Curtis handed me the first report. "Discretionary executive travel, 18 months, he said. I pulled anything coded under client hospitality, brand partnership, medical priority, and executive relationship management. Executive relationship management, he grimaced. Miles created that category. Of course he did. I sat. The first charge was small, a car service, $480. Pick up from Vanessa Rourke's apartment to Teterboro. The second was larger, in-flight catering, caviar, French champagne, custom floral arrangement. The third was a villa deposit in Aspen, then Miami, Napa, Anguilla, Paris, not all on Caldwell aircraft, but enough. Private segments disguised as client scouting trips, crew lodging billed under executive development, security detail for brand partner. Fuel surcharges buried in pooled operating expenses. Vanessa's name appeared directly only twice. Everywhere else, she was VR consulting, Rourke Media, external partner, wellness ambassador, guest liaison, or medical priority. I turned pages until the numbers blurred. "How much?" I asked. Curtis did not pretend to misunderstand. "Directly traceable, $782,000, indirect and likely misclassified, another $1.4 million, I looked up, the room became too sharp. Over $2 million. Yes, for Vanessa, for travel involving Vanessa, connected entities, or events where she was the only non-employee beneficiary. I pressed my fingertips to the page, not because I was weak, because I wanted to keep my hands still. $2 million in flights, hotels, security, catering, concierge fees, luxury villas, beach resorts, and influencer staging. $2 million, while Miles told me we should delay raises for ground crew because margins were tight. $2 million, while I personally donated my dividends back into the scholarship airlift fund after my father died. $2 million, while Elaine praised Vanessa for being self-made because she wore linen and spoke softly about healing. Why didn't you flag this sooner? I asked. Curtis took the question without flinching. I did. When? 3 times. Miles said you had approved strategic brand outreach. He also said you didn't want to be bothered with minor operational expenses while grieving. My mouth went dry. He slid a memo across the table. At the bottom was a forwarded reply from Miles. Curtis. Nora is aware. Do not burden her with optics level spending. She trusts my judgment. I remembered that week I had been in my father's office, sitting on the floor because I could not bring myself to sit in his chair. Miles had brought me soup. He had taken paperwork from my hands and told me he would handle the noise. He had handled it by hiding it. Curtis passed me the second binder. There is more. The phrase scraped through me. He opened to a set of documents clipped in blue. Preliminary merger structure for Mercer Aries Group. He said. I stared at the name. Mercer Aries. New holding company. Drafted by outside counsel, not Mara. The proposal transfers Caldwell Ayres brand partnerships, luxury charter assets, and several aircraft management contracts into a new entity. Miles would serve as CEO with preferred founder shares. Founder shares, I said. Curtis nodded grimly. My company would be licensing assets to his company. In effect, I turned the page. There it was, a spousal consent clause, a block for my signature, a clause titled Continuity of Control in Marital Enterprise Events. Legal language had a special kind of violence. It did not shout. It smiled in a suit. I read every line. If I signed, Miles could execute asset transfers under an expanded management mandate. If I filed for divorce after signing, the management rights would remain in place through a 3-year transition period to protect operational stability. My stomach turned. He had planned for me to leave before I knew I wanted to. Curtis stood quietly near the window. When did you get this? I asked. Yesterday afternoon. He asked finance to prepare valuation schedules. Said you were ready to sign after your New York event. My laugh came out soundless. He had cancelled my flight to my mother's foundation ceremony, sent Vanessa on vacation with my plane, and planned to get my signature. When I was emotionally bruised, tired, and cornered, what was Vanessa's role? I asked. Curtis hesitated. There's a pitch deck. He handed me a tablet. The first slide was glossy and nauseating. Aries by Vanessa Rourke. Private wellness travel for the woman who chooses herself. Vanessa stood on a runway in cream silk, one hand touching the side of a Caldwell jet, my jet, under strategic assets. The deck listed Caldwell Air Aircraft, pilot network, elite client database, philanthropic reputation, and legacy brand trust. Legacy brand trust, my father's name, my mother's memorial work, my employees' labor, all repackaged as Vanessa's backdrop. I swiped to the next slide. Miles's name appeared as executive partner. Vanessa's name appeared as founder and creative chair. Mine did not appear at all. Something inside me stopped hurting and started arranging itself. Pain was messy. Strategy was not. I looked at Curtis. Who else has seen this? Outside counsel. Miles. Possibly Elaine. The deck was copied to her personal email. Of course it was. There's also a scheduled board preview in 3 days. I closed the tablet. What does the board know? That Miles has been exploring a lifestyle charter expansion. They do not know about the asset transfer structure. I stood. They will. Curtis's eyes sharpened. How far do you want to take this? That was the question everyone kept asking in different clothes. How angry are you willing to be? How much truth can you afford? How much comfort are you willing to burn? My phone buzzed. Miles, this time. He left a voicemail. I played it on speaker. His voice filled the finance office, clipped and furious. Nora, I just landed, and my release credentials are dead. Ground operations says Jet 6 cannot depart SD. Barts for the return leg without dual authentication. Fix it now. Vanessa is upset, and I have investors calling. You have made your point. Call me before you turn a marital disagreement into corporate sabotage. The voicemail ended. Curtis stared at the phone. I saved the audio. Then another text came in from Miles. Miles, unlock my credentials or I swear I will make sure everyone knows you grounded planes because I took care of a friend. Another screenshot. Then Vanessa posted again, a video this time, ocean in the background, white terrace, her face turned away, artfully sad. Caption: healing should not require permission from people committed to misunderstanding you. I saved it too, Curtis said quietly. Nora. I looked at him. He tapped the ledger. If you ground the fleet, it will hurt. Clients will be angry. Pilots will need explanations. Investors may panic. Miles will say you acted emotionally. He will say that anyway. Yes. Can we ground legally? Curtis did not answer. He was not counsel, so I called Mara. She answered from what sounded like a moving car. Tell me. I put her on speaker and laid out the facts: stolen security key, false owner authorization, deleted operations note, medical priority code on a leisure itinerary, financial misclassification, possible asset transfer scheme. Mara did not interrupt once. When I finished, she said, grounding is not only legal, it may be required until we determine how many releases were falsified. Curtis closed his eyes for half a second, as if he had expected it but still hated hearing it. What about active flights? I asked. Anything airborne lands normally, nothing unsafe, no dramatics, no passenger abandonment. We issue a compliance hold on departures pending verification of passenger purpose, credentials, and funding source. You are not punishing Miles, you are protecting the certificate. That mattered. I did not want revenge that looked like him. I wanted consequences that could stand in daylight. Draft it, I said. Mara's voice softened a shade. Nora, once you do this, Miles will stop pretending he loves you. I looked at the pitch deck again. Vanessa smiling in front of my father's aircraft. I think he stopped before I did. Curtis moved to the printer. You'll need board notification. Prepare it, and staff. I'll address them myself. My phone rang again. This time, it was Elaine. I declined. She called again. I declined again. Then she texted, Elaine, you are humiliating my son over a woman who has already suffered enough. I typed back before I could overthink it. Your son humiliated his wife to finance that woman's suffering. I sent it. For 3 seconds, I felt petty. Then I looked at the ledger and decided petty was too small a word for what they had done. Curtis gathered the documents. What do you need from finance? Freeze discretionary travel spending not tied to verified operations, suspend Vanessa, VR Consulting, Rourke Media, and Aries-related payments, flag any Mercer family charges over $500 from joint company adjacent accounts. His eyebrows rose. Company adjacent. You know what I mean. I do. I was waiting for you to say it. That hurt more than it should have. How long have you been waiting? Curtis looked toward my father's old portrait on the wall. Since your wedding reception, he said. The room went silent. At my wedding reception, Miles had given a toast about legacy. Everyone cried. I cried. Curtis had stood near the bar, face unreadable. I had assumed he was grieving my father. What did you see? I asked. He thanked the Caldwell family for trusting him with its future, Curtis said, not for welcoming him into it. I let that settle. Outside the finance office, the hallway buzzed with normal business, phones ringing, assistants walking, someone laughing near the elevator. A company could look healthy while rot moved through its wiring, so could a marriage. I picked up the pitch deck, the ledger, and the printed authorization. I need a conference room in 20 minutes, I said. Ops, finance, legal, safety, HR. No Miles, no Elaine, no outside counsel. Curtis nodded as he moved toward the door. My phone buzzed again. A photo from Miles, not a post, a direct message. Vanessa stood on a resort balcony wrapped in a white robe, eyes red as if she had been crying. Miles's hand was visible at the edge of the frame, holding a phone, maybe taking the picture, maybe touching her shoulder. Below it, his message read, look what you're doing to her. Is this who you want to be? For 1 second, the old Nora rose inside me, the Nora who would have felt guilty, who would have apologized for the weather if someone else got wet, who would have wondered whether Vanessa truly was fragile and whether Miles had only been clumsy, not cruel. Then a second message arrived. Miles, sign the Mercer Aries consent when I get back, and I will forget today happened. There it was, the price of his forgiveness, my signature. I took a screenshot, then I forwarded it to Mara and Curtis. My hands were steady when I typed my reply. Me, you are not coming back with my fleet. His answer came almost instantly. Miles, watch me. I looked through the finance office window toward the hangars beyond the highway, where Caldwell aircraft sat under the morning light like sleeping animals. No, I said to the empty room, watch me. The operations center had no windows. My father designed it that way because he said people responsible for aircraft should not be distracted by whether they could see only from one angle. The center was all screens, maps, schedules, radio feeds, dispatch boards, blinking aircraft icons, and the low, constant hum of people trying to make movement safe. When I walked in, conversation thinned. Beth Alvarez stood near the central dispatch station, headset around her neck, face pale but composed. She was in her 40s, with silver at her temples and the kind of eyes that had seen executives come and go while the work remained. She looked at the folder in my hand. Mrs. Mercer, she said. Nora. I corrected. Today, use Nora. Something passed through her expression. Respect, maybe, or warning. Mara arrived 2 minutes later carrying a leather portfolio and wearing the calm of a woman who frightened people by never needing to raise her voice. Curtis followed with finance binders. Our director of safety, Malcolm Reed, came in last, already reading the preliminary report on his tablet at 10:05 a.m. I stood at the front of the operations center and faced 32 employees, pilots, dispatchers, maintenance leads, fuel coordinators, charter managers, people who had known my father's voice over radio and Miles's voice over conference calls. I'm going to be direct, I said. Nobody moved. This morning, an aircraft was released using my owner authorization without my consent. The passenger purpose code appears to have been falsified. A prior operations note may have been deleted. Finance has identified additional travel charges that require review, effective immediately. Caldwell Air is placing a compliance hold on all non-airborne departures until credentials, passenger classification, and payment source are verified. A young dispatcher whispered, all departures. All non-airborne departures, Malcolm said firmly. Aircraft already in flight land as filed. No safety disruptions. Beth's fingers moved over her keyboard. A screen on the wall changed. Green departures became yellow holds. Then red blocks appeared beside every Caldwell aircraft scheduled to depart within the next 4 hours. Compliance review required. A murmur moved through the room. I let it. People needed one breath to understand the scale of what I had done. Then I continued, this is not punishment. This is not gossip. This is not about a personal conflict. No matter what you hear from anyone outside this room, this is about aircraft releases and legal responsibility. If you are asked to bypass verification, document the request and send it to legal. If anyone threatens your job for compliance cooperation, document that too. Beth's jaw tightened. Miles called. The number flashed on the wall because his calls still routed through executive operations. Everyone saw it. I answered on my phone instead and put him on speaker. Miles, I said, his voice came through tight with controlled panic. Why is Jet 6 on hold? Compliance review. I am standing on a tarmac in St. Bart's with a flight plan filed and a departure slot in 30 minutes. Not anymore. The operations center went silent enough to hear a headset click. Miles lowered his voice. Nora, take me off speaker if you have me on speaker. I do not take orders from suspended credentials. Someone inhaled sharply. He heard it. You're in ops, he said. Yes, you are humiliating yourself in front of employees who need leadership. They're getting it. This is insane. Jet 6 is fueled. Crew is ready. Vanessa has a sponsor call in Miami tonight. There it was, not my mother's ceremony, not our marriage, not company safety. Vanessa's sponsor call. Beth looked down at her station, but not before I saw her mouth harden. Miles, I said. Why was Vanessa Rourke listed as medical priority passenger? Silence. Then he said, that was an internal classification. For a beach vacation, you do not understand operational Flexibility, explain it to legal. Nora, he said my name differently then, less angry, more dangerous. I know you're upset, I know today hurt you, but if you keep escalating, you will hurt hundreds of employees. Is that what you want? Pilots unpaid, clients stranded, a company your father built thrown into chaos because your pride got bruised. There was the man I married not because he was kind, but because he knew exactly where to press. My father, employees, responsibility, pride. Old Nora would have stepped back. She would have tried to prove she was not emotional by absorbing the injury quietly. New Nora looked at Beth, at Malcolm, at Curtis, at the employees watching the line between marriage and management burn away in real time. No pilot goes unpaid, I said, no client is abandoned. Finance will cover verified passenger accommodations, safety will clear aircraft one by one. The only people without authorization are those who misused it. His voice sharpened again. You do not have the technical authority to do this without me. Mara stepped beside me. She does. Miles went silent. Mara continued, crisp and formal. Miles Mercer. This is Mara Chen, counsel for Caldwell Air Holdings and Nora Caldwell Mercer in her capacity as controlling owner. You have been served electronically with notice of suspension of unilateral operating authority pending investigation. You are instructed not to contact staff except through approved channels. He laughed once. Mara, stay out of my marriage. I am not in your marriage, she said. I am in your liability. A ripple moved through the room, not laughter, something better, recognition. Miles heard that too. You all think this is funny, he snapped. You think she can run this company while throwing a tantrum? Ask her how many flight rotations she's personally scheduled. Ask her how many clients she's closed. Ask her what happens when investors call and realize the grieving heiress has decided to play air traffic controller. Beth lifted her head. I saw the exact moment Miles lost something he did not know he had been spending. Staff goodwill. I spoke before anyone else could. Investors may call me directly. You won't answer them, right? No, I said, I won't answer them your way. Vanessa's voice appeared in the background, strained and petulant. Miles, what is happening? The resort car is waiting. I closed my eyes for half a second, not because it hurt, because it clarified. Miles, I said, you are free to book commercial travel with personal funds. Caldwell Air will not move Jet 6 until the release is verified. My wallet is in the aircraft. Ask the crew to retrieve it. My company card is locked. Correct. My personal Amex is tied to the household account. Not anymore. The silence that followed was almost beautiful. Then Miles said, very quietly, you froze my card. I froze an authorized travel spend. I am your husband. You were, in the sense that mattered. Mara glanced at me, but did not interrupt. Miles breathed hard into the phone. You are going to regret this when the board hears you stranded me. I didn't strand you. You flew away on a plane you had no right to release. His voice dropped again, all softness gone. I will come back, and when I do, I will make sure every person in that room understands what you really are. I looked at the operations team. Some stared at the screens, some stared at me. Beth stared straight ahead, unblinking. What am I? Miles, a jealous wife with a dead father's company. The words landed in the center of the room. No one moved. There are insults that hurt because they are clever. There are insults that hurt because they are true. And there are insults that stop hurting the second they reveal the person saying them. This one did the third. My dead father's company is the reason you had a plane to steal, I said. I ended the call for a heartbeat. The operations center remained silent. Then Beth turned to her console. Compliance hold entered for Jet 6. Departure denied pending owner verification. Another dispatcher said. Jet 2 hold entered. Jet 4 hold entered. Jet 1 scheduled medical transport. Verified non-profit partner. Cleared after safety review. I looked at Malcolm. He nodded. We can prioritize essential and verified flights. Luxury charter and executive discretionary stays frozen. Do it. The room moved, not smoothly at first. There was confusion, frustration, urgency. Phones started ringing. Clients demanded answers. Dispatchers repeated the same careful line. Caldwell Air is conducting a safety and authorization review. Your accommodations will be covered where applicable. We apologize for the delay. I took calls too. A hedge fund manager threatened to move his business. I told him he had every right to choose another provider, but I would not put any aircraft in the air under compromised authorization. He hung up. 10 minutes later, his assistant called back and asked when verified flights might resume. A family scheduled for a medical visit worried they would miss an appointment. I personally cleared the aircraft after Malcolm verified the purpose and crew. I called the mother myself. She cried. I did not. A wedding party in Miami screamed about ruined photographs. Curtis arranged hotel rooms. They still screamed. Some people treated inconvenience like tragedy because they had never met the real thing. At noon, the first news alert appeared. Aviation. Heiress halts Caldwell Air Fleet after husband seen with influencer EX. Miles had moved quickly. The article quoted an unnamed source close to the Mercer family saying I had emotionally overreacted after seeing my husband comfort a longtime friend. Comfort. That word had become very expensive. By 12:30, Vanessa posted again a photo of her bare feet on marble, a glass door behind her, the ocean beyond. Caption. Some storms reveal who wants control more than love. I saved it at 1:05. Miles sent a voice message. I played it alone in my father's old office, not in the operations center. His voice was no longer controlled. You think you're winning, you're not. Vanessa is crying. My mother is humiliated. The board is confused. Clients are furious. You burned your own house down because I took one flight. 1. You have always been like this, Nora, cold, punitive, unable to let anyone breathe unless they thank you for the oxygen. I sat at my father's desk. On the wall hung a black and white photo of the first Caldwell aircraft, a small twin-engine plane my father bought before he owned a house. My mother stood beside it, laughing, hair blown across her face. She had hated flying at first, he used to say, until she realized planes could get help to people faster than pride could. Miles kept talking. I will fix this because that's what I do. I fix what you break. When I come back, you will sign the Aries consent, unlock my authority, and apologize publicly. You owe me that much after everything I gave up to carry your family name. The message ended. I replayed the last line. Everything I gave up to carry your family name, not share it, not honor it, carry it, as if my name were a burden he had lifted, not a ladder he had climbed. Mara entered without knocking. You need to see this. She placed a document on the desk. It was a letter from Miles's outside counsel, delivered by email. Demand for immediate reinstatement of executive authority, allegation of spousal abuse through financial control, threat of emergency injunction. I read it once, then again. He's accusing me of financial abuse because I cut off company-funded travel. I asked, yes, can he get an injunction? Mara's expression was calm but serious. Unlikely on these facts, but he can create smoke. He can say you froze marital access while he was traveling. He has personal accounts. We need statements. I'll get them. There's more. Mara tapped the final paragraph. If Nora Caldwell Mercer continues to interfere with company operations, Mr. Mercer reserves the right to disclose evidence of her mental instability and incapacity following the death of Harold Caldwell. For a moment, I could not move. My grief. He was going to use my grief. I remembered waking up on the bathroom floor 2 weeks after my father's funeral because I had forgotten to eat. Miles found me, held me, called a doctor, sat beside me while I admitted I was not sleeping. He had kept the records, or maybe just the memory. Mara's voice softened. Nora, I folded the letter. He wants to make me look unstable. Yes, then we make the truth look documented. Her eyes sharpened. Meaning, full audit, full authorization review, board briefing tomorrow. And Mara, yes, start divorce preparation. She did not look surprised. Fault or no fault, both options. I want leverage, not drama. Mara nodded, understood. Outside the office, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. A woman's voice said, Mrs. Mercer, this is Lillian from Le Grand Azur Resort. I'm calling because Mr. Mercer's corporate card has declined for the villa extension, and he said there must be an issue with your office. I looked at the compliance hold screen on my laptop. Jet 6 remained grounded in St. Bart's. Miles, for the first time since I met him, was somewhere my name could not immediately rescue him. There is no issue, I said. Mr. Mercer will need to provide a personal payment method. A pause. I see, Lillian said carefully. He said you would say that. I'm sure he did. In the background, I heard Miles's voice, angry and muffled. Then Vanessa's, higher, frightened now. What do you mean declined? I closed my eyes, not in pain, in release. Mrs. Mercer, Lillian said. Should I tell him anything else? I looked at my ring sitting on the desk beside the stolen security key. Yes, I said. Tell him Caldwell Air wishes him a pleasant stay at his own expense. Miles came home 31 hours after he told me to watch him. He did not arrive by Caldwell aircraft. That mattered more to him than he wanted anyone to know. A commercial car stopped outside the brownstone just after 8 in the evening. I watched from the upstairs window as he stepped out wearing the same pale blue shirt he had worn in Vanessa's balcony photo. It was wrinkled now. His hair was too neat in the way men look when they have been fixing themselves repeatedly in airport bathrooms. He carried no luggage. That also mattered. Vanessa was not with him. That mattered most. He stood on the sidewalk for a moment, looking up at the house as if surprised it had not leaned toward him in apology. Then he came up the steps and tried his key. I had not changed the locks. I wanted him to walk in believing something still opened for him. Nora, he called. I sat in the living room with Mara on speaker but muted, my phone face down beside a cup of untouched tea. The printed revocation documents rested on the coffee table, so did the stolen security key sealed in a clear evidence bag. Miles stopped in the doorway. His gaze went to the key first, then to me. For 1 second, exhaustion stripped the polish off his face. He looked older, less like the man in Pitch Decks, more like someone who had slept badly in a chair and discovered the world did not rearrange itself when he frowned. Then he smiled. That was how I knew this would not be an apology. Nora, he said softly, this has gone too far. I leaned back. Hello, Miles. He stepped into the room. I'm not here to fight. No, no. He placed both hands in front of him, palms open. I'm here because we are husband and wife, and I refuse to let lawyers and employees turn a painful misunderstanding into a war. The word misunderstanding sat between us like spoiled food. You stole my security key. He looked at it. I borrowed a credential in an emergency. What emergency? Vanessa was in crisis. She was going on vacation. She had been publicly humiliated. Her sponsor dropped her. She was spiraling. And that required my aircraft, my authorization, and a false medical code. His jaw tightened, but he kept his voice gentle. You are focusing on technicalities because you don't want to talk about the real issue, which is, you never trusted me. It was almost impressive. The man had stolen from me and returned wounded by my suspicion. I picked up the evidence bag. Trust usually struggles when one person commits fraud. His face hardened. Do not call it fraud in our home. Our home was purchased by my trust. Try again. His eyes flashed. There he was, not sorry. Cornered before he could answer, the front door opened again. Elaine entered with Miles's sister, Paige, and his uncle Robert. I had expected Elaine. I had not expected a family procession. Elaine removed her gloves slowly, like she was entering a negotiation instead of a marriage she had helped poison. Nora, she said, we need to talk as a family. I looked at Miles. You brought backup, he sighed. I brought people who love us. Paige, who had not paid rent on the design studio I funded in 8 months, looked at me with wet-eyed disappointment. Nora, what you're doing is scary. Robert, a retired attorney who drank too much and called every woman under 40 young lady, settled into the armchair without invitation. Emotions are high, that's understandable. But you need to consider proportionality. I almost smiled. They had rehearsed. Elaine sat beside Miles. Paige remained standing, arms folded. Robert opened a leather folio. Miles stayed near the fireplace, framed by the family portrait Elaine had insisted we hang there last Christmas. In it, I stood slightly apart from the Mercers, wearing navy, smiling politely, funding everything. Nora, Elaine began, Miles has been humiliated in the press. Because he humiliated me in public, he made an error in judgment. He stole my authorization. Robert lifted a hand. Allegedly. I looked at him. The security key is on the table. Possession is not intent. Mara's muted icon glowed on my phone. I let Robert keep speaking. Men like him always told on themselves if given room. Your reaction has exposed the company to financial harm, he said. Your father's legacy could suffer serious damage if investors perceive instability. Miles falsified an aircraft release. Robert frowned. Again, we should avoid inflammatory wording. Then give me accurate wording. He hesitated. I waited. Miles stepped in. Nora, I am sorry. Everyone went still. He crossed the room and lowered himself onto the coffee table in front of me. Close enough to look intimate, not close enough to touch. I am sorry I hurt you, he said. I should have told you about Vanessa's trip. I should have handled the authorization differently. I was wrong to make you feel secondary. Make you feel, not make you feel. Beside him, Elaine's expression softened with triumph. She thought the shape of apology would still work on me. Miles reached into his jacket and pulled out a cream envelope. My eyes dropped to it. There it was, the pen hidden inside the flowers. I want to fix this tonight, he said. No more lawyers. No more public damage. We sign a temporary restoration agreement. Limited authority. Just enough to get operations moving. Then we go to counseling. We release a joint statement saying this was a family matter that became overblown. I took the envelope. Miles's shoulders loosened. I opened it. Inside was a document titled Marital Operational Stabilization Agreement. Mara had warned me he might try this. Still, seeing it made my skin go cold. I read the first page. Temporary restoration of executive operating authority to Miles Mercer, mutual non-disparagement, withdrawal of fraud allegations, agreement not to use marital conduct in corporate proceedings, immediate board statement affirming confidence in Miles, private resolution of travel expenses, suspension of divorce filing for no fewer than 18 months. I turned the page. There it was, a clause requiring my signature on the Mercer-Aries consent within 10 business days, framed as a commercial continuity measure. I looked up. Miles watched me carefully, not hopefully, carefully. You brought me a trap, I said. His face changed. Elaine snapped. That is a disgusting thing to say when your husband is trying to save the company. Paige's voice shook. Do you even care what this is doing to him? I looked at her. Did you care when he used company money for Vanessa? Paige glanced away, so she knew that answered another question. Robert cleared his throat. Young lady, this agreement is standard crisis management. I am 32, Robert, and no, it is not. Miles stood. You see, this is what I'm dealing with. She won't listen to anyone. She wants punishment. No, I said, I want distance. That quieted him more than shouting would have. I placed the agreement on the table and turned to the last page. The signature block waited for me like a mouth. I picked up the pen Miles had included. Elaine leaned forward. Miles breathed in. I uncapped the pen and wrote 2 words across the signature line: rejected. Fraudulent, Paige gasped. Robert stood halfway. That is a legal document. It is now evidence. Miles's face went dark. You think you're clever. I think you're desperate. He stepped toward me. You have no idea what I've done for you. I stood too. The room changed. He was taller. But this was my house, my money, my evidence, and for the first time, my voice had no apology in it. What did you do for me, Miles? He pointed toward the windows, toward the street, toward the invisible company. Beyond it, I made people take you seriously. I stood beside you when your father died. I ran that company while you wandered around like a ghost. I dealt with clients, investors, pilots, board members. I turned Caldwell from a sentimental family business into something scalable. You tried to turn it into something yours. I earned it. The words came out before he could stop them. There, the room heard it. Elaine closed her eyes. Paige looked at her brother. Robert sat down slowly. Miles realized what he had said and tried to recover. I mean, I earned respect. No, I said, you meant the company. He pointed at me again. Your father handed you an empire because of blood. I built value. You built invoices for Vanessa's vacations. She understands me. That one should have hurt. It did not. It only clarified the furniture of the room. Then ask her to fund you. I said. His mouth twisted. You are cruel. No, I am late. My phone buzzed on the table. Mara sent a text, recording clear. Keep him talking if safe. Miles saw the screen light but not the message. He looked at my phone, then at me. You're recording this. I did not answer. He lunged for the phone. I picked it up first. Careful, I said. His hand froze inches from mine. The room went completely silent. Robert, finally remembering his legal training, said, Miles, Miles stepped back, the mask came down again, but it no longer fit. He straightened his jacket. Fine, you want lawyers, we'll use lawyers. You want public, I'll go. Public, by tomorrow morning, every client and every board member will know you are unstable, vindictive, and unfit to run an airline. I tilted my head. With what evidence? His smile was ugly. You forget what grief did to you. For a second, Elaine looked at him with something like alarm, maybe even shame, but not enough to stop him. Miles continued. Doctors, medication, panic attacks. You think people want a woman who collapsed after her father died controlling their aircraft? The room blurred at the edges, not because I was breaking, because rage, real rage, is very clear in the center and hot at the margins. You kept that to use against me. His eyes flickered. That was not an answer. I said. He leaned closer. I kept everything. There was my husband, a man who had held me at my lowest and filed the memory away as ammunition. I heard Mara's voice through the phone then. I had accidentally unmuted her when I grabbed it. That is enough, Miles. Everyone turned. Mara's voice was calm and lethal. For the record, this call has captured threats of reputational harm, coercion to sign operational documents, and admission of retained medical information for leverage. Nora, end the meeting. Miles's face drained. I picked up the rejected agreement and handed it to him. Leave. Elaine stood. Nora, please. I looked at her. You brought him here to pressure me. You can leave with him. Paige whispered. What about the house? I almost laughed again. Even now, even here. What about it? If you divorce, where is Mom supposed to host family dinners? Miles snapped. Paige, shut up. Too late. The room had shown me its entire skeleton. I walked to the front door and opened it one by one. They left. Elaine paused beside me. You will regret becoming this hard. I looked at Miles standing on the steps. No private car waiting this time. No, I said. I regret becoming this useful. I closed the door for a moment. The house was silent. Then Mara spoke through the phone. Are you alone? Yes. Lock the door. I did. Good. Tomorrow morning, Miles is going to make this public. I know. We can respond. Not yet. Mara paused. Nora, he thinks I will defend my emotions. I said, I won't. I'll defend the aircraft. Outside, a car door slammed. Miles shouted something I could not make out. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Mercer family source claims Caldwell Air owner suffering personal breakdown after marital dispute. I read the headline once, then I walked to the wedding photograph in the hall, lifted it off the wall, and placed it face down on the console. By morning, my face was everywhere, not glamorous everywhere, not Vanessa's kind of everywhere, filtered through ocean light and sympathetic captions. My photo appeared beside words like breakdown, jealous, grounded, erratic, heiress, marital crisis. They used a picture from a charity dinner where I had been looking away from the camera, cropped badly. I looked tired and severe. Miles's statement was careful. My wife has been under extraordinary emotional strain since the loss of her father. I ask for privacy and compassion as our family handles this painful matter. Caldwell Air's employees and clients deserve stability. I remain committed to restoring trust. Vanessa's was shorter. Women should support women, especially when pain makes them act from fear. I stared at the screen in Mara's office. Pain makes them act from fear. I repeated. Mara sat across from me, reading through witness protocols. Do not post. I wasn't going to. You looked like you might throw the laptop. That's different. She allowed herself half a smile. Mara's office overlooked a narrow street lined with law firms, coffee shops, and people who carried folders like shields. I had slept 3 hours in the guest room after locking Miles out of the primary bedroom and calling a locksmith at dawn. The locks were changed by 7. Miles texted at 7:15. Miles, you changed the locks on my home. My home. He had not answered. That silence felt better than his apologies. Mara slid a document toward me. Beth is downstairs. She is nervous. Understandable. She says Miles's assistant called her twice last night. I looked up. Threatening, framed as concern, which is usually worse. We brought Beth into the conference room at 9. She wore a grey blazer and carried a canvas tote clutched in both hands. Her eyes moved to the recorder on the table, then to me. I don't want to be part of a marriage fight, she said before sitting. You're not, I said. You're part of an Authorization review. She gave a tense nod. Mara began with basic questions. Full name, position, years at Caldwell Air, role in flight release. Beth answered clearly at first. Then Mara asked about the operations note. Beth looked down at her hands. I entered a hold at 12:06 a.m., she said. Passenger purpose mismatch, executive discretionary route to St. Bart's under medical priority. I tagged Mr. Mercer and asked for documentation. What did he say? Mara asked. In the chat. Nothing, he called me directly 2 minutes later. Do you have a recording? No, Caldwell doesn't record internal mobile calls unless routed through dispatch. What did he say? Beth swallowed. He said, do you want to be the reason Nora misses a charity event and Vanessa has a breakdown? Clear the damn jet. My fingers tightened. Mara asked, did he say Mrs. Mercer approved it? Yes, he said Nora knew and didn't want the paperwork drama. Did you believe him? Beth looked at me then. No, the word was small but it held. Why not? Mara asked. Beth's eyes shone, but her voice stayed steady. Because Mrs. Mercer never releases medical priority without documentation. Her father made that rule after the Houston storm flights. Everyone knows that. My father's name moved through the room without being spoken. Mara nodded. What happened to the hold note? It disappeared by morning. Admin removal. Who had admin removal capacity? Miles. IT Director Paul Jenkins. Possibly Mrs. Mercer. But she had no reason to remove a note she didn't know existed. Mara wrote that down. Did anyone contact you after the fleet hold? Yes. Miles's assistant, Simone. She said Mr. Mercer was concerned I might be dragged into a misunderstanding. She said people who took sides during executive disputes often found themselves exposed when leadership changed back. Mara's pen stopped. Exact words. Leadership changed back. Mara looked at me. Miles was not planning to survive the review, he was planning to reverse it. Beth opened her tote and pulled out a folded sheet. I printed my hold note before it disappeared. I stared at her. She placed it on the table. I know we're not supposed to print from the operations chat, she said. But something felt wrong. Mara took the sheet carefully. Beth, this matters. Beth's mouth trembled. Am I going to lose my job? I answered before Mara could. No, if Miles comes back, he won't come back above you. Beth looked at me for a long second, then nodded. Once, after she left, Mara scanned the note and uploaded it to the evidence folder. One witness became two at noon. Captain Ron Ellis arrived in uniform though he was not flying. He was 60, broad-shouldered, with weathered skin and the calm of someone who trusted instruments more than people. He had flown Caldwell aircraft for 27 years. He removed his cap before sitting. Mrs. Mercer, he said, I'm sorry I flew her. The simplicity hit me harder than expected. You followed a release. I said, I followed a bad release. Mara switched on the recorder. Captain Ellis described the night before the flight. Crew call adjusted at midnight. Passenger change. No medical equipment. No nurse. No doctor. No urgency except Miles's insistence. He had asked dispatch for clarification and been told executive authorization cleared. Did you see Vanessa Rourke board? Mara asked. Yes. Condition. He frowned. Tan luggage. Sunglasses. Coffee. Not medical distress. I almost smiled despite myself. Did Mr. Mercer say anything to you directly? Mara asked. At the stairs. Mrs. Mercer was inside the terminal. He told me, get us out before Nora turns this into a scene. My breath caught. Not after I objected. Before Miles had known I would object. He had planned speed as strategy. Captain Ellis looked at me. I should have stopped. You had a release. I had a smell. Mara leaned forward. Captain, did anything happen in St. Bart's after the compliance hold? His jaw tightened. Mr. Mercer instructed me to reposition the aircraft to Miami without passenger clearance. My eyes lifted. What? I said. He said the hold was political and would be resolved. He told me to file maintenance repositioning. Mara's face went still. To move the aircraft empty. He implied it. Then Ms. Rourke said she and Miles could board after we taxied away from the resort side ramp. I sat back. Miles had tried to get around the hold even after the exposure, even after revocation, even after legal notice. Did you comply? Mara asked. No, why? Captain Ellis looked at me. because Harold Caldwell would haunt me, for the first time in 2 days. I almost cried, he continued. I told Mr. Mercer I would not move Jet 6 without verified release. He said I was choosing the wrong Caldwell. The wrong Caldwell. I wrote it down, not because I needed the evidence, because I wanted to remember the exact shape of contempt. Captain Ellis handed Mara a printed flight management message and a personal note. I'm retiring in 8 months, he said. He can fire me if he gets back in. But I won't lie for him, Mara said. He cannot legally fire you for refusing a compromised release. Captain Ellis gave her a dry look. Legal and possible are cousins, not twins. I liked him for that. When he left, I walked to the window outside. Traffic moved through the city like nothing had happened. Mara stood beside me. This is strong. It still looks like a marriage fight to the public. For now, can we release Beth and Ellis? Not without exposing them to pressure before we have board protection. So we need board protection. Yes, my phone buzzed. A message from Miles. Miles, you are collecting little employees now. Be careful who you encourage to commit career suicide. I showed Mara. She took a photo with her own phone. Then another message came. Miles, sign the restoration agreement by 5 p.m. or I release the medical records. The room changed temperature. Mara's face hardened. There it is, she said. I looked at the text. My grief turned into a gun. My medical appointments. After my father died, my sleeping medication, my panic attacks, the doctor Miles had driven me to. The nights I had believed he was protecting me from collapse. He had been building a file. I did not feel cold now. I felt awake. Can we stop him? I asked. We can warn him. We can seek emergency relief if he distributes protected information. But if he leaks selectively to tabloids first, we may be responding after harm. I stared at the city. Miles knew the timing. The board was in 48 hours. If he stained me before then, some directors might hesitate, not because they believed him fully, because powerful people feared mess. What if I release it first? I asked. Mara turned. Your own records, not the records, the truth, that I sought grief counseling after my father died, that my husband is threatening to use that against me. Mara considered. It's risky, she said, but it removes the blackmail value. I'm tired of him owning the worst days of my life. Mara's expression softened. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered on speaker. Nora Caldwell, a woman asked. Yes, this is Simone Avery. I work for Miles. Mara's eyes narrowed. I pressed record. Simone's voice trembled. I know I shouldn't call you, but he asked me to send something to 3 reporters. What something? A pause. Doctor visit summaries, not full files, screenshots. He said they show you were unstable after your father died. Mara mouthed. Keep her talking, I said. Why are you calling me? Simone inhaled shakily. Because my sister had postpartum depression last year. Her husband called her crazy in court. I can't be part of this. Something inside my chest cracked open, not all at once, not enough to spill, just enough to let air in. Simone, I said carefully, do not send anything. Forward Miles's instruction to Mara Chen. She will protect you as a whistleblower. He'll ruin me. He is trying to ruin everyone who tells the truth, I said. That is not power, that is panic. Simone was quiet, then she whispered. He's meeting Vanessa tonight at the airport lounge. The grounded jet is being inspected tomorrow, but he thinks he can use Jet 3 through a shell client. He said you wouldn't catch it because you'd be busy defending your sanity. Mara and I looked at each other. There it was, his next move. Which lounge? I asked. Caldwell Private Suite, 9 p.m. I wrote it down. Simone added, almost too softly to hear. Vanessa said Nora won't burn the whole thing down because she still loves you, he said. She loves what I let her keep. My hand tightened around the phone. Send the email to Mara, I said, then go home. Do not meet him alone. After the call ended, Mara sat back. We can notify security, she said. Bar him from the private suite. No, Nora. I want him there. Her eyes narrowed with interest. I looked at the evidence folder on the screen. Beth's note, Captain Ellis's statement, Simone's call, Miles's threat, Vanessa's posts. The false medical code, the Shell brand pitch. He thinks I'll be busy defending my sanity. I said. Mara waited. Let him explain his. The Caldwell private lounge had been my mother's idea. My father wanted grey chairs, coffee, and efficiency. My mother insisted that people who were afraid of flying needed warmth before the runway, so the lounge had soft blue walls, low bookshelves, fresh flowers, and photographs of places Caldwell Air had served during disaster relief: New Orleans, Houston, Puerto Rico, small towns with flooded roads and temporary clinics. Vanessa had taken selfies there 3 times in the past year. I knew because I had found them in the brand deck at 8:35 p.m. I entered through the staff corridor with Mara, Beth, and a security supervisor named Grant. We went into the small observation room behind the lounge. My father had installed it for VIP security, not marital collapse, but legacy often becomes useful in ways no one expects. A camera feed showed the lounge empty. Grant checked the audio. Recording is active under facility security policy. Notice signage is posted at entry. Mara nodded. Good. Beth looked nervous. Are you sure you want to be here? No, I said. I'm sure I need to be. At 8:52, Vanessa arrived. She came alone, wrapped in a camel coat, hair loose, face bare enough to look wounded but not careless. She carried a small designer bag and her phone. She looked around the lounge like she owned the silence. At 8:57, Miles entered. He looked better than he had the night before, showered, fresh suit, anger disguised as focus. He moved straight to Vanessa, and she folded into his arms. I watched my husband hold another woman in my mother's lounge. There was no shock left, only record. Vanessa pulled back first. Is she watching? Miles looked around. No. She's with lawyers, probably crying to the board about medical codes. Vanessa made a soft sound. Don't be cruel. I'm not. I'm tired. She sat on the sofa. Miles, I can't keep doing this. My comments are a nightmare. People are saying I stole Nora's plane. You didn't steal anything. She says every plane is hers. His mouth twisted. That's what she thinks. Mara's pen moved across her legal pad. Vanessa leaned forward. Can you really get Aries through without her? Not without pressure. So pressure her. Miles paced toward the window. You said she would sign after the foundation event. She was supposed to be emotional. I planned to apologize for missing it. Tell her the expansion would honor her parents. Get the signature. Stabilize everything. My pulse went slow. There it was. Not guessed, not implied, said. Vanessa frowned. But you cancelled her flight before the event. I needed you out of town before the board deck leaked. If Nora saw you in the city, she would ask questions. So you sent me away on her jet. You wanted street Barts. I wanted distance. You chose the plane. Miles turned. Do not start rewriting this. Vanessa's face changed. For the first time, the softness fell away. I am not rewriting anything. You promised me Aries would launch with me as founder. You promised I wouldn't have to keep pretending to be some sad friend you rescued. Miles ran a hand through his hair. And it will. When Nora signs. What if she doesn't? She will. Vanessa laughed, sharp and ugly. You keep saying that. She grounded the fleet. Miles, she froze your cards. You had to ask your assistant to book you economy. The word economy came out like a disease. Miles's face darkened. Temporary. She embarrassed you. She surprised me. No, Vanessa said. She stopped being useful. The room behind the glass went still. Beth's lips parted. Mara looked at me. I did not move. Miles stared at Vanessa. Be careful. She stood. No, you be careful. My name is already attached to this. If Aries dies, I look like a mistress with a suitcase. If Aries launches, I look like a founder. That was the deal. He lowered his voice. You were never supposed to call it a deal, but it is one, Vanessa. You said Nora was too loyal to leave. You said she hated confrontation. You said she would rather pay than be publicly pitted. Each sentence was a little burial. Miles said nothing. Vanessa stepped closer. You told me she was a vault with a wedding ring. Your words. Mara's pen stopped. I felt Beth look at me, but I kept my eyes on the screen. A vault with a wedding ring. That was what my husband called me when I was not in the room. Miles rubbed his face. I was angry. You were honest. He looked toward the door. We need to focus. Jet 3. It's still possible. I have a shell client hold. If I can get it released through non-owner approval before Nora's systems catch the routing, we can get to Miami for the sponsor meeting. Once money starts moving, pressure changes. Vanessa's eyes lit. And Aries. Alive. If I can get the board to see Nora as unstable. She hesitated. Are you really going to leak her medical stuff? Miles's face hardened. I will do what I have to. She went to counseling because her father died. She went to counseling because she cracks under pressure. Vanessa looked away for a moment. Something human crossed her face, then it passed. If you do leak it, she said, don't let it come from me. My brand can't look into mental health. Miles gave a short laugh. Your brand? Yes, my brand. You think I stayed around because I wanted to be your secret forever? His mouth flattened and there it was, the romance Miles had chosen over me. Stripped of music and sunlight, not tragic, not noble, two people arguing over how to divide what they had not earned. Mara leaned toward me and whispered, we have enough. I nodded, but I did not leave yet. Miles's phone rang. He checked it and swore. What? Vanessa asked. Simone isn't answering. Maybe she got nervous. She better not. Vanessa folded her arms. You rely on frightened women too much. Miles turned on her. And you rely on men with planes. Her face went white for a second. I almost pitied them. Then I remembered my mother's empty chair in New York. I stepped out of the observation room and entered the lounge. Both of them turned. The silence was immediate. Vanessa's hand flew to her throat. Miles recovered first. Of course. I walked farther in. Mara came behind me. Beth stayed near the corridor. Visible but protected by Grant, Miles looked past me to the observation room door. His face changed as he understood. You recorded us. This is a monitored security area. I said. Signs are posted. Vanessa looked around wildly. She had probably passed the sign on her way in without reading it. The way people with access often ignore the terms of entry. Miles stepped toward me. You set me up. No, I let you speak. Mara held up a folder. And you did. Vanessa's eyes filled. She turned to Miles. You said she wouldn't be here. Miles did not comfort her. That was the first crack in her fantasy. He stared at me instead. You think this makes you look sane? I smiled. Without warmth. Find a new word. Miles. That one is worn out. His jaw worked. Vanessa whispered. Nora, I didn't mean all of that. I turned to her. Which part? The founder part? The deal part? Or the part where you said I stopped being useful? Her face crumpled. But no tears fell. I was under pressure. You were under my roof. On my aircraft. In my mother's lounge. Spending my company's money. That is not pressure. That is access. Miles snapped. Do not talk to her like that. I looked at him, still choosing her. He glared. This is not about choosing. It became about choosing when you cancelled my flight. He stepped closer. You have no idea what love costs. No, I said, I know exactly what yours costs. I have the invoices. Beth made a sound behind me, quickly covered. Miles pointed at Mara. If any of this leaves this room, I will sue, Mara said. On what grounds? He did not answer. Vanessa grabbed her bag. I'm leaving. Miles turned. Vanessa, no, I am not going. Down for your wife issues. I almost laughed at that. My wife issues. Vanessa walked toward the door, but I spoke before she reached it. Vanessa, she stopped. If you post one more implication that I harmed you out of jealousy, I will release the part where you explain the Aries deal. She turned slowly. You wouldn't. I raised an eyebrow for the first time since I had known her. Vanessa Rourke looked at me without performance. She looked afraid. Miles saw it and hated me for it. After she left, he and I stood across from each other in the lounge my mother had built for frightened passengers. You should have taken the commercial flight, he said. It was so absurdly small after everything that I stared. What, to New York? You should have gone commercial and let me fix the rest. My mother's ceremony was at 4. You could have sent a video. I absorbed that. The empty chair, the scholarship students, the donors waiting, the speech I wrote at midnight because grief still came harder. After dark, you could have sent a video. That was the marriage. Right there. My presence was optional when someone else's comfort required my absence. I nodded once. Thank you, I said. His eyes narrowed. For what? For making this easy. Something flickered in his expression. Fear again. Good. I turned to leave. Nora, he said. I stopped at the door. His voice dropped. You still love me? I looked back. There were 1,000 answers. Cruel ones, clever ones, wounded ones. I chose the truest. I loved the man I thought you were. I said, you should have let him stay dead. Then I walked out. My phone buzzed before I reached the car. A new headline. Leaked audio. Caldwell owner accused of targeting husband's female friend. Miles had released something, not the lounge recording, a cut from our living room. my voice saying, then ask her to fund you. Another cut, I want distance. Another, rejected, fraudulent, edited together. I sounded cold enough to freeze the Hudson. Mara checked her phone beside me. He's moving fast, she said. I looked back at the terminal in the glass. My reflection stood straight, pale, and very calm. Good, I said. Mara frowned. Good, he just proved he likes edited audio. I opened the evidence folder. Tomorrow, I said, we show the board what unedited sounds like. The boardroom table had belonged to my father, thick walnut. 12 seats, no shine. He hated shiny tables because, in his words, people who needed reflections during meetings were probably looking at the wrong face. At 8:55 a.m., every chair was filled. Some directors looked angry, some looked uncomfortable, 2 looked frightened by the headlines. 1, a venture investor named Gregory Pike, kept checking his phone as if public opinion might text him instructions. Miles arrived at 8:58. He wore a dark suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. The wounded husband costume. His left hand displayed his wedding ring prominently. I had not put mine back on, he noticed. The corner of his mouth tightened. Vanessa was not there. That was predictable. She preferred stages where lighting could be controlled. Mara sat to my right. Curtis sat to my left. Malcolm and Beth waited outside until called. Captain Ellis had submitted a written statement and offered to appear by video. The board chair, Judith Hale, opened the meeting. Judith was 71. A former airline executive with silver hair and a stare that could stop nonsense mid-sentence. My father had once said Judith believed in mercy only after maintenance checks. We are here, Judith said, because Caldwell Air is under a fleet compliance hold, its executive authority structure is disputed, and public reporting suggests the controlling owner and acting president are in conflict. Miles leaned forward. Judith, with respect, this is a marital matter that Nora escalated without operational necessity. I looked at Judith. It is not. Miles sighed like a man enduring a storm. You can hear her tone. I almost smiled. That was his strategy, not facts. Tone. Judith glanced at him. We will hear documents before tone. Miles's jaw tightened. Mara began. She did not dramatize. That was why she was devastating. She presented the timeline. 11:42 p.m. Owner authorization logged from my account. 11:58 p.m. Miles called operations. 12:06 a.m. Beth entered hold note for passenger purpose mismatch. Morning. Note deleted by admin. 7:35 a.m. My flight cancelled. Vanessa Rourke boarded under medical priority classification for leisure itinerary. Jet 6 placed on compliance hold after landing. Miles attempted return release despite suspended credentials. Miles later threatened release of personal medical information unless authority was restored. Miles interrupted. That last allegation is false. Mara clicked once. His text appeared on the screen. Sign the restoration agreement by 5 p.m. or I release the medical records. The room went still. Miles said. That was taken out of context. Judith looked at him. What context improves it? He looked away. Gregory cleared his throat. Nora, can you address the concern that your grief history may have impacted your decision-making? Mara's eyes sharpened. I lifted a hand. I will answer, I said. The room turned toward me. My father died 14 months ago. I experienced grief. I sought counseling. I had difficulty sleeping. My husband knew because he was there. Yesterday, he threatened to leak that private information to force me to sign an agreement restoring his authority and transferring company assets into a new entity. I will not apologize for getting help after losing my father. I will ask this board to consider why Miles thought my grief was more relevant than his falsified aircraft release. Nobody spoke. Gregory looked down at his phone and did not lift his eyes again. Judith's expression did not soften, but something in it settled. Proceed, she said. Curtis presented the finances, discretionary travel, Vanessa-connected entities, misclassified expenses, corporate card charges, resort deposits, fuel and crew overtime. The total appeared on the screen. $2,184,600 under review. A director named Helen swore softly. Miles sat back. Brand development costs. Curtis adjusted his glasses. Then they should have been approved by the brand development budget. They were exploratory. They were coded medical, client hospitality, And executive relationship management. A board member I barely knew muttered, executive relationship management. Judith looked at Miles. Miles spread his hands. Poor coding is not fraud. Mara clicked again. The Ares pitch deck appeared. Vanessa on my runway. Caldwell Assets listed as strategic foundation. Miles as executive partner. Vanessa as founder. My name absent. Spousal consent clause attached. This time, the boardroom did react, not loudly, but bodies shifted, pens stopped, eyes moved from the screen to Miles. He leaned forward. This is a preliminary concept. Nora knew we were exploring lifestyle expansion. I did not know you planned to transfer Caldwell Assets into a company named after yourself while giving your first love founder status. Nora, that is a fact. Miles, not a tone. Judith's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Miles saw the room slipping and changed tactics. He turned to the board. You are watching a personal vendetta dressed as compliance. Yes, I made mistakes. I should have communicated better, but Caldwell Air cannot be run by someone who grounds fleets because she feels replaced. Mara clicked again. The lounge recording began. Miles's voice filled the room. She was supposed to be emotional. I planned to apologize for missing it. Tell her the expansion would honor her parents. Get the signature. Stabilize everything. Vanessa's voice followed. You told me she was a vault with a wedding ring. Miles went white. The recording continued. If Nora saw you in the city, she would ask questions. You wanted street Barts. You chose the plane. She stopped being useful. If Ares dies, I look like a mistress with a suitcase. If Ares launches, I look like a founder. Mara stopped the audio. The silence afterward was not empty. It was full of doors closing. Miles stood. That recording was obtained through entrapment, Mara said. It was recorded in a monitored company security area, where signage is posted. You hid behind glass. You spoke in a corporate facility about bypassing a compliance hold, Mara said. That is not intimate marital communication. Miles turned to me. You set a trap for your husband. No, I said. You brought Vanessa to my mother's lounge to plan around my authority. I used the cameras my father installed before you ever had a keycard. His face twisted. Judith raised her hand. Sit down, Miles. He did not for a second. I thought he would refuse. Then he sat. Beth came in next. Her voice shook at first, but only at first. She described the hold note, the call, the deletion, Simone's warning. She did not embellish. She did not cry. She looked at the table, then at Judith, then finally at me. Miles stared at her with open contempt. When she finished, he said, Beth has always resented executive direction. Judith looked at him. Do you deny telling her to clear the damn jet? Miles hesitated. That hesitation buried him deeper than denial would have. Captain Ellis appeared by video. He confirmed the passenger condition, the street, Bart's release pressure, and the attempted repositioning. When asked why he refused, he said, because a plane is not a marital favor. I wrote that down too. By noon, the board voted on an emergency resolution. Miles's authority would remain suspended. A special compliance committee would review all disputed releases. Outside forensic accountants would audit discretionary spending. Legal would notify insurers of potential misclassification. Human resources would protect staff witnesses. Miles would be barred from direct contact with operations personnel pending investigation. The vote was 9-2. Miles stared at the table. He had not been removed yet, but he had been contained. For a man like Miles, containment was humiliation. Judith turned to me. Nora, the fleet hold remains until safety clears aircraft. Yes. Essential verified flights prioritized. Yes. Public statement. Mara passed copies around. Drafted. It cites authorization review, safety compliance, and witness protection. It does not mention marital facts. Miles laughed bitterly. How noble. I looked at him. You wanted public. You got precise. His eyes lifted. There was hatred in them now. No more husband. No more mask. No more wounded man asking for compassion. Just a man watching the vault lock from the inside. The meeting adjourned at 12:47 as people stood. Miles came close enough that Mara shifted in her chair. He spoke quietly. You think the board saved you? No. Good. Because they can still turn. Clients can still leave. Staff can still panic. Vanessa can still talk. Let her. He smiled. You don't know what else I have. I looked at him for a long moment, then I said, "Neither do you." His smile faded because that was the problem with men who collected ammunition from other people's pain. They assumed no one else knew where the weapons were stored. At 2:15 p.m., our public statement went live. At 2:23, Miles released another edited audio clip. This one made me sound like I did not care about stranded clients. By 3:00, 3 luxury charter clients cancelled pending contracts. One investor requested an emergency call. A financial commentator called me a cautionary tale about inherited power without emotional discipline. At 3:40, Vanessa posted a black square caption, "I will not let another woman's insecurity destroy what I built from nothing." Built from nothing, using my plane. The comments were split now. Some believed her, some asked about the medical code, some asked why Miles had access to my mental health history, some called me cold, some called me iconic. Public opinion was not justice, it was weather, useful to track, dangerous to worship. At 5:10, I walked through the operations center. People were tired, coffee cups everywhere, phones ringing. A dispatcher looked near tears after being cursed out by a client's assistant. Beth was still at her station, shoulders tight. I stepped onto a chair. Not elegant, effective. The room quieted. "I know today was hard," I said. "I know some clients are angry. I know headlines are ugly. I also know every aircraft cleared today was cleared correctly. No one here will be punished for following compliance. Overtime is approved. Meals are on the company. If anyone contacts you directly to pressure you, send it to legal." A young dispatcher raised his hand. "Are we going under?" A few people looked horrified that he had asked. I appreciated him. "No," I said. "We are not going under because we chose to stop bad releases before they became worse ones. We may lose clients who wanted convenience more than safety. Let them go." Beth looked up. I continued. "My father used to say rich people think the sky belongs to them because they can buy seats in it. He was wrong about many things, but not this. The sky belongs to physics. We respect that first." A few tired smiles appeared, not applause. This was not a movie. People had work. But something steadied. At 6:30, Mara and I returned to my house. A black envelope waited at the door, no postage. Inside was an invitation card. "Elaine Mercer requests your presence at a private family dinner tomorrow evening to resolve this matter with dignity." Mara read it and snorted. Dignity. A handwritten note from Elaine sat behind the card. "Nora, enough. Come tomorrow. Sign what is necessary. Do not make Miles choose between his mother and his wife." I stared at that sentence. Miles had already chosen between his wife and another woman. His mother wanted to pretend the real tragedy would be making him choose between two sources of comfort. My phone buzzed. "Miles, tomorrow night, Mom's house. Come alone unless you want the next leak to be worse." I handed the phone to Mara. She read it. "Absolutely not," she said. I looked at the invitation. Mercer family dinners had always been theater. Elaine at one end, Miles at the other. Me seated where donors could see my ring. Conversations about loyalty, legacy, family, sacrifice. Dishes served by staff paid from my household account. Wine from my cellar. Tomorrow. They wanted an audience for my surrender. I picked up a pen and wrote on Elaine's invitation, "Accepted." Mara stared at me. "Nora." I took a photo and sent it to Miles. Then I said, "He thinks I'm coming to save my reputation." "You're not." "No." I looked at the black envelope, then at my bare left hand. "I'm going to end his." Elaine Mercer's dining room was built for judgment. Long table, high-backed chairs, crystal chandelier. Portraits of dead Mercer men whose money had thinned 2 generations ago but whose expressions remained expensive. The room smelled like roast lamb, polished wood, and old entitlement. I arrived at 7 exactly, not alone. Mara sat in the car outside with a full evidence copy, a live check-in schedule, and instructions to call if I missed a text. Grant, the security supervisor, waited 1 street away. I wore a black dress, low heels, and a small recording device clipped inside my jacket. Legal in our state allowed one-party consent. Mara had reminded me 3 times not to forget the phrase "if challenged." I was the party. I consented. Elaine opened the door herself. Her eyes moved over my dress, my empty left hand, the absence of Miles at my side. "You look severe," she said. "You invited me to a legal ambush." I dressed politely. Her mouth tightened. Do not start at the door, then do not insult me at it. For a second, she looked like she might slap me. That surprised me, not because Elaine was gentle, but because she preferred injuries that left no marks. Instead, she stepped aside. The family had gathered. Miles stood near the fireplace with Robert. Paige sat at the table, eyes red. Two cousins I barely knew whispered near the bar. Elaine's friend Margot, who called herself a family advisor because she had once married a judge, sat with a glass of wine and a face full of pity she had not earned, and Vanessa stood by the window. That stopped me. She wore pale gray, softer than white, less guilty than black. Her hair was pulled back, her face was bare again, but this time she looked genuinely strained. Miles watched my reaction. He wanted pain. I gave him logistics. Is she family now? Elaine lifted her chin. Vanessa is part of the situation. I looked at Miles. That is one way to describe an invoice. Vanessa flinched. Good. Dinner began with silence pretending to be civility. The staff served soup. No one tasted it. Robert cleared his throat twice. Paige sniffed. Miles drank water like a man rationing anger. Vanessa kept her hands in her lap. Elaine waited until the plates were cleared before speaking. We are here because this has become destructive, she said. Nora, you have made your pain public. Miles has suffered. Vanessa has suffered. The company has suffered. That cannot continue. I looked around the table. Interesting order. Elaine ignored that. Families survive by compromise. Companies survive by governance. Robert sighed. There she goes. I turned to him. You brought documents. His expression stiffened. Miles leaned forward. Nora, this does not have to get uglier. It already got honest. That is what you find ugly, Vanessa whispered. Can we not do this? I looked at her. You came to my husband's family dinner. Her eyes flashed. Because he asked me to. Of course he did. Miles slammed his hand on the table. Crystal jumped. Enough. The room froze. He stood. I have apologized. I have offered restoration. I have tried to protect you. And you keep choosing war. I looked up at him. You have never tried to protect me. You tried to manage the damage I could do to you. You froze my accounts. I froze company misuse. You locked me out of my own home, my home. You turned my staff against me. My staff told the truth. His face reddened. Do you hear yourself? The old training tugged at me. The urge to soften, to say ours, to prove I was not selfish. I let the urge pass. Yes, I said, mine, because you spent 3 years teaching me what happens when I say ours to people who hear theirs. Elaine stood. You ungrateful girl. There it was, girl. I looked at the woman whose son had used my father's company, my mother's lounge, my trust, my accounts, my grief, my house, and my silence. Ungrateful for what, Elaine? For being welcomed into this family. The laugh escaped before I could stop it. Everyone stared. Welcomed, I said. I bought the house where you host Christmas. I paid Paige studio rent. I covered your cardiac specialist. I funded Robert's legal consulting retainer when his firm dropped him. I put Miles in the chair he used to steal from me. What exactly did you welcome me into? A seating chart. Paige burst into tears. That's unfair. No, it is itemized. Miles pointed at me. This is why people think you're cold. People who spend my money often do. Robert opened his folio. We need to return to the purpose of this meeting. Finally, he distributed documents. I did not touch mine at first. The title read Family Reconciliation and Mutual Release Agreement. Not marital, family. They wanted everyone protected. I scanned the clauses. Nora Caldwell-Mercer agrees not to pursue civil claims related to past travel expenses. Nora Caldwell-Mercer agrees to restore Miles Mercer's role for operational stability. Nora Caldwell-Mercer agrees to issue public apology to Vanessa Rourke. Nora Caldwell-Mercer agrees to refrain from divorce filing for 12 months. Nora Caldwell-Mercer agrees to execute Aries transition review in good faith. All parties agree not to disparage Mercer family members. I looked up. You want immunity. Robert folded his hands. We want peace. You want me to apologize to Vanessa. Vanessa looked at the table. Elaine said, you ruined her name. She attached it to my aircraft. Miles leaned down, palms on the table. Sign it. The room went silent. There was no pretense now, no flowers, no apology, no therapy language, just command. No, I said. His eyes went flat. Then I release everything. Do it. that startled him. I continued, release the counseling records, release the edited audios, release whatever little folder you kept from the worst year of my life, then explain under oath how you obtained, stored, and threatened to use private health information to force corporate signatures. Robert's face changed. He had not thought that far. Or maybe Miles had not told him. Elaine looked at her son, Miles. Miles did not look at her. Vanessa pushed her chair back slightly. I saw it then. The shift, not redemption, self-preservation. Vanessa looked at Miles and understood he was not a tragic man trapped by an unstable wife. He was a man who kept files on women who trusted him. Miles saw her move. Sit down, he said. Her eyes widened. The room heard it. Miles softened. Too late. Vanessa, please. I looked at her. There's your founder. She stood. Miles's face twisted. Do not walk out. Vanessa's voice shook. You told me she was controlling. She is. You didn't tell me you were using medical records. I was using leverage. The word hung over the table. Leverage. Elaine sank slowly into her chair. Paige stopped crying. Robert closed his eyes. Miles realized I did not smile. I did not need to. Thank you, I said. His head snapped toward me. For the clarification. He looked at my jacket. Are you recording? Yes. Robert stood. This meeting is private. I am a party to the conversation. I consent. His mouth opened, then closed. Mara would have been proud. Miles lunged around the table. Grant entered before he reached me, not dramatically, not bursting through like a hero. He had been waiting in the hall after Mara texted him when my check-in word changed. He stepped between us with professional calm. Mr. Mercer, he said, do not approach Mrs. Mercer. Miles stared at him. This is my mother's house. Grant did not blink, then behave well in it. A cousin made a strangled sound. Elaine stood again, voice trembling. Nora, stop this. You have made your point. No, I said, I made my point at the airport. None of you listened. I picked up the reconciliation agreement and held it over the candle flame in the center of the table. Robert shouted, do not. I did not burn it. I was not reckless. I held it close enough for the paper to curl at the edge, then placed it on my plate. This is what your piece looks like, I said, pressure dressed as family. Then I took my own envelope from my bag and set it before Miles. He stared. Elaine whispered, what is that? Notice of divorce filing, notice of evidence preservation, notice to cease contact except through counsel. Notice that any further attempt to use my private health information will trigger immediate legal action. Miles did not touch it, so I slid it closer. The marriage is over. His face changed. Not grief, possession. No, he said, yes, you don't get to end this because you're angry. I'm not ending it because I'm angry. I'm ending it because I'm awake. Vanessa moved toward the door. Miles turned on her. Where are you going? She looked at him, then at me, then at the family who had mistaken proximity to money for morality. I need air, she said. You need me, Miles snapped. Vanessa laughed then. It was small and broken. No, Miles, I needed the plane, and she walked out. The silence after she left was almost merciful. Miles stood in it, abandoned by the woman he had chosen at the table where his family had gathered to make me surrender. Elaine whispered, Miles, sit down. He did not. He looked at me with eyes full of something too late to be love and too ugly to be regret. You think you won because she walked out? No. I said, I think I lost years because I stayed. He flinched. Finally, I turned to leave. Behind me, Miles said, the airport press conference is tomorrow. I will be there. I will stand in front of every employee, every investor, every camera, and I will tell them exactly who you are. I paused at the doorway for a moment. I saw him at the private terminal again, his hand on Vanessa's back, his mouth saying, you can take another flight. I looked back. Good, I said. Terminal 1 has better screens. Terminal 1 was my father's final project, not the largest terminal, not the fanciest, but ours. He built it after a winter storm stranded hundreds of passengers and a competitor left charter clients sleeping on floors while empty planes sat waiting for VIPs. My father came home furious and said private aviation had confused luxury with immunity. Terminal 1 had heated floors, emergency sleeping rooms, a medical suite, staff rest areas, and a public-facing media wall large enough to display flight updates during crises. At 10 in the morning, that media wall displayed the Caldwell Air logo. Below it, In simple white letters, authorization review and fleet. Compliance update. Reporters gathered behind the stanchions, employees stood along the side wall, board members occupied the front row, Judith Hale sat with her hands folded over her cane, Curtis stood near finance, Malcolm near safety, Beth and Captain Ellis stayed out of camera range by choice, protected but present. Miles arrived at 10:07. He wore navy. He had always looked good in navy. For one foolish second, memory offered me our rehearsal dinner, Miles in a navy suit, smiling at me across a candlelit room, promising my father he would never let me stand alone. Memory is cruel because it does not care what people become. Miles entered with Robert and 2 lawyers I did not know. Elaine followed, pale but composed. Paige was absent. Vanessa was absent too. Though her absence had already become a headline, I stood backstage with Mara. She checked my microphone. You don't have to speak more than necessary. I know. Do not chase every insult. I won't. Do not look at him too long. That made me glance at her. Mara shrugged. You're human. I almost smiled. Not according to the internet. The internet also thinks pilots can just pull over clouds. That time, I did smile. At 10:15, Judith opened. Caldwell Air placed a temporary compliance hold on fleet departures after discovery of irregularities in owner authorization, passenger classification, and executive discretionary travel. Today we will clarify governance actions and next steps. Miles stepped forward before she could continue. Nora, he said loudly, using my name for the cameras, before this becomes another performance, I am asking you as your husband to stop. Every camera turned. There it was. His first move, make me look cold before I spoke. He faced the reporters. My wife is in pain, he said. She has suffered immense loss. Unfortunately, that pain has been redirected toward me, toward a dear friend, and toward a company that needs steady leadership. I have made private mistakes, and I am willing to own them privately, but grounding a fleet, threatening employees, freezing accounts, and weaponizing corporate power during a marital breakdown is not leadership. Mara whispered. Let him. I did. Miles continued, voice growing stronger as the room listened. I built Caldwell's modern client structure. I protected Nora when she could barely get through meetings. I stood by this family. And now, because I helped someone she dislikes, she wants to destroy me. Helped someone, he said it with such conviction that for half a second, I understood how people believed him. Lies spoken calmly often sound more mature than truth spoken through injury. Then he turned toward me. If you still have any love for me, he said, do not do this. A murmur moved through the press line. Elaine lowered her eyes, performing sorrow. Robert nodded solemnly. I walked to the podium. Miles stepped aside just enough. Like a man allowing an emotional wife to embarrass herself, I placed my folder on the podium. The terminal lights were bright. The media wall glowed behind me. Beyond the glass, aircraft sat parked under a hard blue sky, waiting for clearance. I looked at the room, not at Miles. My name is Nora Caldwell Mercer, I said. As of yesterday evening, I filed to dissolve my marriage, professionally. I am the controlling owner of Caldwell Air Holdings. Personally, I am a woman whose husband cancelled her flight using her authorization and gave the aircraft to his first love for a leisure trip while classifying that passenger as medical priority. The room erupted. Questions flew. Mrs. Mercer, are you saying, was this Vanessa Rourke? Did Mr. Mercer? I lifted one hand. The sound lowered. I will not ask you to take my word for it. Mara nodded to the technician. The media wall changed first. The flight release, my name at the bottom, timestamp, priority release, then security footage from my bedroom hallway the night before, Miles entering the room after I slept, Miles picking up my phone from the nightstand, Miles opening the drawer, Miles removing the black security key. A sound moved through the room. Miles went rigid. He turned to one of his lawyers. The lawyer looked stunned. I kept speaking. This is my security key. A close-up appeared on the screen. NC sticker. Evidence bag. This is the release entered after that key was accessed. The screen shifted to the passenger manifest. Vanessa Rourke. Medical priority. Then Vanessa's own ST. Bart's post appeared beside the itinerary. Some people know when you need to be chosen first. Off to heel. Several reporters began typing fast. Miles said sharply, "This is a violation of marital privacy." Mara stepped to the second microphone. The footage was captured by home security covering credential access relevant to corporate authorization. Mr. Mercer was notified through counsel. Continue. Miles's face flushed. I continued. This is the deleted hold note from operations. Beth's printed note appeared with sensitive staff details redacted. This is Captain Ellis's statement, confirming no medical distress and later pressure to reposition the aircraft despite the compliance hold. Captain Ellis stood at the side wall, arms folded. Cameras found him. He did not smile. The media wall moved to financial records, charges, villas, concierge fees, fuel, crew overtime. Vanessa-linked entities. I heard someone in the press line whisper, 2 million. Curtis looked like he wanted to correct their rounding. I said, these charges remain under audit. They are not why I filed for divorce. They are why the board opened a governance review. Miles took a step toward the podium. Nora, enough. I finally looked at him. No, the word carried, not loud. Final. The media wall changed again. The Ares pitch deck appeared. Vanessa in front of a Caldwell jet. Miles as executive partner. Vanessa as founder and creative chair. Caldwell assets listed as strategic foundation. My name absent. Murmurs became louder. Judith's cane tapped once. The room quieted. I said, this was the proposed company my husband planned to launch using Caldwell assets and my spousal consent. I did not consent. Miles spoke through his teeth. It was a concept deck. Mara clicked. The lounge recording played. Miles's voice filled Terminal 1. She was supposed to be emotional. I planned to apologize for missing it. Tell her the expansion would honor her parents. Get the signature. Stabilize everything. Vanessa's voice followed. You told me she was a vault with a wedding ring. I did not look away from Miles. The recording continued. If Ares dies, I look like a mistress with a suitcase. If Ares launches, I look like a founder. Reporters reacted openly now. Miles lunged toward the technician booth. Grant and another security officer stepped into his path. Stop this. Miles shouted. The mask shattered. Cameras loved it. That was the cruel part. He had built a world of optics. Now optics ate him alive. I lifted my voice. The fleet was grounded because aircraft releases were compromised. Verified essential. Flights have continued after safety review. No aircraft was stopped midair. No passenger was put at risk. No employee will be punished for telling the truth. Beth's eyes filled across the room. I looked back at the press. My marriage is ending because I will not stay married to a man who mistakes access for ownership, grief for weakness, and my silence for consent. Elaine stood abruptly. This is cruel. Every camera turned to her. For once, she had entered the scene without controlling it. I looked at my mother-in-law. Cruel was asking me to apologize to the woman who took my plane while your son kept my medical history as leverage. Elaine's face drained. A reporter shouted, Mrs. Mercer, did you know about the medical records? Elaine looked trapped. Miles barked, no comment. Too late. The room had heard enough. Judith rose slowly. The terminal quieted again. As board chair, she said, I am announcing that Miles Mercer has been removed from all executive responsibilities at Caldwell Air effective immediately pending final investigation. He is prohibited from accessing Caldwell systems, facilities, aircraft, accounts, and personnel except through counsel. Nora Caldwell Mercer will serve as interim executive chair with oversight from the Special Compliance Committee. Miles stared at her. You can't do that. Judith's eyebrows rose. We just did. His lawyer touched his arm. Miles. He shook him off. This company will collapse without me, Miles said. I looked at him. Then, really looked. He believed it even now, with my father's terminal around him, my mother's lounge behind him, my employees watching, my documents on the screen. He believed he had been the pillar and not the weight. No, I said, it was bending around you. The final slide appeared. It was not evidence. It was an internal notice. Caldwell Air announces immediate termination of all contracts, payments, and proposed partnerships with Vanessa Rourke, VR Consulting, Rourke Media, and Ares-related entities. At the back of the room, a reporter said, Vanessa just deleted her black square. Another said, her sponsor pulled the wellness campaign. Miles heard. I saw it hit him. Not my pain, not the divorce, not the fraud, the loss of future. His phone began ringing, then ringing again, then buzzing continuously. He looked down. Maybe Vanessa, maybe investors, maybe banks. He did not answer. A uniformed airport security officer approached him. "Mr. Mercer, you need to leave the restricted operations area." Miles laughed once. "This is absurd." The officer did not laugh. Miles looked at me for the first time all morning. His voice cracked. "Nora, not command, not accusation, appeal." The room waited. The old Nora would have recognized that crack as a door. She would have stepped toward it. She would have worried what people thought of a wife who let her husband be escorted out. I saw the door. I let it close. "You can take another flight," I said. His face changed as he understood I had given him back his own sentence. Security escorted him away. Cameras followed until Judith ordered them to remain behind the line. Elaine did not follow her son immediately. She stood near the front row, looking at me as if seeing a stranger in a house she had decorated. "I loved him," I said quietly, "not for the room. Maybe not even for her. That was the part none of you respected." Elaine opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Then she left. The press conference ended in controlled chaos. Questions, statements, legal boundaries, staff movement, phones, screens, damage control, the ugly machinery of truth becoming public record. At 1:20 p.m., Mara handed me a phone. "It's the resort again," she said. I answered. Lillian from Le Grand Azur sounded more strained than before. "Mrs. Mercer, I apologize for calling, but Mr. Mercer is attempting to charge an airport transfer, villa balance, and commercial rebooking through accounts now marked closed. He insists Caldwell Air will cover his return because he has been wrongfully removed." I closed my eyes. Miles had been removed in Terminal 1, but he was still trying to travel on my name. "No Caldwell Air account is available to him," I said. "He may use personal funds." A pause, then Lillian said, "He says he doesn't have access to any." Through the phone, faint but clear, I heard Miles in the background. "Tell her to stop this. Tell her I need to get back." I looked through the glass at the grounded aircraft beyond the terminal. "Mrs. Mercer," Lillian asked. I said, "Then he should call someone who owes him a ride." People think public downfall is loud. It is not. The loud part is the flash, the cameras, the raised voice, the security escort, the headline. The actual downfall happens afterward, in quiet rooms where access disappears. At 3:00 p.m., the bank confirmed removal of Miles from all Caldwell-linked credit lines. At 3:15, IT disabled his executive devices. At 3:22, his building badge stopped working. At 3:40, the fuel vendor acknowledged that no aircraft could be fueled under Mercer approval. At 4:05, Vanessa's attorney sent a letter claiming she had been misled by Miles regarding the ownership structure of Ares. Mara read that one aloud in my office. Ms. Rourke was under the impression that Mr. Mercer had authority to allocate brand assets and aircraft access for approved strategic development. Curtis, who had come in for the finance update, made a sound of pure disgust. "She knew enough to call herself founder," he said. Mara continued reading. Ms. Rourke denies knowledge of any improper authorization or medical classification. I leaned back in my father's chair. "She said in the lounge that Ares dying makes her look like a mistress with a suitcase." Mara held up the letter. "Now she wants to look like a suitcase with legal counsel." Curtis muttered, "At least suitcases are useful." I laughed. It surprised all three of us. The laugh was small, rough, and over quickly. But it was real, not happy, not healed, just alive. Then the phone rang again. "Miles." Mara looked at it. "Do not answer unless you want it recorded." "I want it recorded." She started the system capture. I answered. "Miles." His breathing came through first. Wind in the background, voices, airport noise. "You need to unlock one card," he said. "No hello, no apology, no shock at the day. You need counsel." I said, "I need a card. No Caldwell account is available to you. I'm at the airport." I assumed. "My personal card was declined because you froze the household payment source. You have separate personal accounts, not liquid. Everything is tied up because of the board freeze." "Then call your mother." Silence. Then, bitterly, "She isn't answering." That landed in a place I did not expect. Elaine Mercer, who had entered my bedroom uninvited, who had asked me to protect her son at every cost, who had watched him use leverage and still wanted me to sign peace, was not answering. Family loyalty had limits when bills came due. "Call Vanessa," I said. She left. There it was, the first love, the fragile woman, the reason for the flight, the founder, the storm, the chosen one gone. I looked at Mara, her face gave nothing away. Miles lowered his voice. Nora, listen to me. I need to come back. We need to talk without everyone around us. No, you don't mean that. I do. You are angry. I am busy. He made a sound that might have been a laugh if it had not broken in the middle. You destroyed my life today. No, I stopped funding the version you lied about. You think that sounds different. Yes, airport announcements echoed behind him in another language for the first time. I pictured him clearly, not polished in Terminal 1, not commanding a boardroom, just a man near a counter with declined cards, a dead badge, and no aircraft waiting because the woman he treated as infrastructure had removed the road. I loved you, he said. I closed my eyes. Mara looked away, giving me the privacy of not being watched. The words still had shape. That was the worst part. They could still enter the room and stand where better words should have been years ago. I know, I said. He breathed out. Then help me. No. The silence changed. Nora, you loved me when I made your life larger. You loved me when my grief made me easy to manage. You loved me when my name opened doors and my money kept your family comfortable. But love that needs me powerless is not love I can survive. I made mistakes. You made plans. He said nothing. I continued. You planned to use my mother's foundation event to get my signature. You planned to move assets. You planned to leak my medical history. You planned to bypass a fleet hold. You planned a future where I was useful, silent, and legally trapped. His voice lowered. I was afraid. That stopped me for half a second, not because it excused him, because it was the first honest emotion he had offered. Of what? Of being nothing next to you. The words came out raw for one heartbeat. I saw the man beneath the damage, the one who had entered my father's company and never felt chosen by it, the one who translated insecurity into control because gratitude felt too close to dependence. If he had said that 3 years ago, maybe I would have held his hand. Now, I only understood the motive, not the crime. So you tried to make me smaller, I said. He did not deny it. That was his confession. I can change, he said. Maybe, Nora, but not with my life as your training ground. He inhaled sharply. I looked at the divorce file on the desk. Miles, all contact goes through counsel now. The resort has been told you are responsible for your own expenses. If you are truly without access to funds, your attorney can arrange emergency personal logistics. I will not. You would leave me stranded. I thought of the private terminal, Olivia's pale face, Vanessa's white suitcase, my aircraft lifting into the sky without me. Miles saying, "You can take another flight." Yes, I said. His breath caught, then his anger returned. Because anger was easier than shame. You are going to regret this. When the company gets sued, when clients leave, when you realize I was the only one who knew how to make it work. I ended the call. Mara stopped the recording for a moment. The office was silent. Then Curtis said, "He was never the only one." I looked at him. Curtis straightened his bow tie. "Your father was impossible, but he trained half this building to survive him. We can survive Miles Mercer." That steadied me more than any speech would have. The rest of the day moved in. Documents at 5. Mara filed the divorce petition at 5:30. The court acknowledged receipt at 6. She sent formal preservation notices to Miles, Vanessa, Elaine, Robert, Simone, outside counsel, and every entity connected to Aries at 6:15. Vanessa's sponsor released a statement pausing all partnerships pending review at 7. The first former employee emailed HR with concerns about Miles's expense pressure at 7:30. Beth texted me. "Beth, staff wants to know if we can bring back the old safety briefings your father used to do." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I wrote back me, "Yes, tomorrow morning, I'll do the first one at 8. Elaine finally called. I answered because I wanted to know which version of motherhood she had chosen now. "Nora," she said. She sounded older. "Yes. Do you know where Miles is? An airport. That is not funny." I wasn't joking. He called me 6 times. And, her voice tightened, "Robert advised me not to send money until we understand the legal exposure." There it was. Not, "My son is frightened," not, "I am worried," not, "How do we help him safely?" Legal exposure. You mean until you know whether helping him costs you? She did not answer. I almost pitied Miles then. Almost. He had learned conditional loyalty at that table long before he practiced it on me, Elaine said. He has no cash, he has attorneys, he has no place to sleep tonight. The resort has rooms, they require payment, then Vanessa can pay. She is not answering him either. I looked out at the city. Lights. Miles chose carefully. I said, just not wisely. Elaine's voice cracked with anger. How can you be so cold? There it was again, cold, the word they used when I stopped burning myself for warmth they could feel. I learned from your family. I said. She was silent then, quieter. I did not know about the medical records. I believed her, it did not absolve her. You knew enough, I said. I wanted to protect my son. You protected him from shame so long that he mistook shame for injustice. She inhaled. You think I failed him. I think you taught him love meant never paying. That landed. I heard it. Elaine ended the call without goodbye at 9. I went home, not to the brownstone. I could not sleep under the same roof as wedding photographs and lilies. I went to my father's apartment above the old hangar. He kept it for late nights, snowstorms, and weeks when he fought with the board and refused to go home until he won. My mother had softened it with quilts, books, and a ridiculous yellow sofa he pretended to hate. The apartment smelled faintly of dust and cedar. I set my bag down. On the kitchen counter sat a ceramic mug with a chipped handle, my father's. I touched it once, then pulled my hand back. Grief rose. But differently now, 4 months after he died, grief had felt like drowning. Tonight, it felt like entering a room he had left lit for me. I took out my laptop and opened a blank document. Statement for Caldwell Air employees. I wrote slowly. Tomorrow we begin the work of earning trust the right way. I stopped, then added, no one person is the company, not my father, not me, not Miles Mercer. Caldwell Air is the sum of everyone who refuses to let convenience outrank safety. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown international number. No words, just a photo. Miles sitting on a bench in an airport terminal, jacket wrinkled, tie gone, phone in hand, face turned down. Behind him, a sign for delayed commercial departures. Beside him, no luggage. Then a message, Miles, please. I stared at it. That one word had come too late and asked too little. I turned the phone face down. Then I finished the employee statement. The next morning, I stood in Hangar 2 at 6:30 a.m., with a paper cup of coffee and 200 employees facing me, mechanics in coveralls, pilots in uniform, dispatchers with tired eyes, office staff who had probably read more about my marriage than anyone should know about their employer. Beth stood near the front. Captain Ellis leaned against a tool cabinet, arms folded. Curtis wore a bow tie printed with tiny airplanes, which would have been unbearable on anyone else. Behind me sat Jet 6, grounded, inspected, cleaned, waiting, not forgiven. Aircraft did not need forgiveness. They needed maintenance, records, fuel, weather checks, clearance, and people honest enough to say no. I stepped onto a low platform. My father used to stand in this hangar and shout because he thought microphones made people lazy. I used a microphone. I had nothing to prove to ghosts. Good morning, I said. A scattered response came back. I looked at their faces. I am not going to pretend the last few days have been easy. You have been cursed at by clients, dragged into headlines, pressured by former leadership, and asked to trust a process while the internet treated compliance like gossip. A few tired smiles. I want to say 3 things clearly. First, payroll is protected. Second, witness cooperation is protected. Third, safety decisions will never be punished here. Beth looked down. I continued, some of you knew my father. Some of you only know him as a portrait and a set of impossible procedures. Harold Caldwell was not a saint. He was stubborn, impatient, and once grounded a client for yelling at a mechanic. Captain Ellis smiled. But he believed something I forgot for a while. Access is not ownership. A person can sit in the best seat and still not deserve the controls. The hangar was quiet. I gave control to someone because I loved him. That is my personal truth. I am taking it back because he misused it. That is our professional responsibility. I paused. Today we begin clearing aircraft one by one, not for optics, not to prove panic wrong, to prove procedure right. This time, people applauded, not wildly, not like a staged ending, firmly. Enough. After the briefing, work began. Malcolm's team reviewed release chains, dispatchers rebuilt schedules, finance contacted clients with verified plans, We lost some accounts by noon, we kept more than I expected. One long-time client sent a message saying, I would rather be delayed by honest people than flown by careless ones. I printed that and taped it near dispatch at 10:00 a.m. Mara arrived with final temporary orders. The court had acknowledged contact restrictions. Miles was to communicate through counsel regarding divorce and corporate matters. He was barred from Caldwell facilities. Emergency personal requests were not my obligation. The phrase was dry, beautifully dry at 10:17. Vanessa issued a video apology. Mara and I watched it in my office. Vanessa wore a beige sweater and no makeup. She said she had trusted someone she loved. She said she had not understood the full ownership and authorization structure. She said she never intended to harm another woman. She said she was stepping back to heal. She did not say my name. She did not say medical priority. She did not say $2 million. Curtis watched from the doorway and said, that is not an apology, that is a rebrand with sad lighting. I closed the laptop, archive it. At noon, Elaine sent a message. Elaine, I was wrong to pressure you at dinner. I looked at it for a long time. Then another appeared. Elaine, I do not know how to help Miles now. I typed back me. Start by telling him the truth. She did not answer. At 2. Miles's attorney requested release of personal items from the brownstone, access to certain accounts, and reasonable spousal support consistent with marital lifestyle. Mara laughed for a full 5 seconds, then she became terrifying. By 4, the first aircraft cleared under the new process took off for a verified medical transport. I stood behind the operations glass and watched the icon move across the screen. No champagne, no announcement, just lift. Beth stood beside me. Your father would have yelled at someone by now, she said. Yes. Probably Curtis. Probably. Beth smiled, then her expression grew serious. Are you okay? I looked at the screen. For once, I did not automatically say yes. I'm not finished being hurt, I said, but I'm done being useful to the people who hurt me. Beth nodded like she understood exactly. At 5:30, Sam drove me to Terminal 1, not for a press conference, for a flight. My mother's foundation ceremony had been missed, but the scholarship board had rescheduled a private gathering after everything became public, not because I asked, because the students did. They sent a video from New York, one by one, saying they wanted me there when I was ready. I was ready enough at the terminal. Olivia met me at the counter this time. My black suitcase stood beside her. No white luggage, no silk scarf, no stolen manifest. Mrs. Caldwell, she said. I blinked. She flushed. Sorry. Mara said your filing requests restoration of your legal name. I touched my bare left hand. Nora Caldwell, not Mercer. The name felt old and new at once. That's correct, I said. Olivia smiled. Your aircraft is ready. Behind the glass, Jet 6 waited. Same aircraft, different release. Captain Ellis stood near the stairs. I walked across the tarmac. The evening air smelled like fuel, cold wind, and rain somewhere far away. The jet's silver body reflected the terminal lights. For a moment, I saw Vanessa at the top of the stairs, smiling back through glass. Then the memory moved aside. Captain Ellis tipped his cap. Passenger purpose. Foundation travel, I said. Personal authorization. My own. He smiled. Good answer. Before I boarded, my phone rang. Unknown international number. I knew Mara had told me not to answer calls from unknown numbers, but this was the last loose thread, and I wanted to cut it myself. I answered. Miles sounded worse. Not drunk. Not exactly. Hollow. Nora. Miles, I'm back in New York. I looked at Jet 6. Then you found a flight. My lawyer advanced funds. Good. He laughed bitterly. Good. I said nothing. He breathed into the phone. I went to the house. My key didn't work. No, my clothes. Your attorney has the inventory schedule. My mother says I can stay with her, but Robert told her not to put anything in writing. Of course, he waited for me to react. I did not. Finally, he said, Vanessa gave a statement. I saw. She blocked me. I closed my eyes briefly. There it was. The end of the great romance. Not tragedy. A blocked number. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it in the distant way one can be sorry a storm destroyed a house built on stolen land. He heard the distance. His voice tightened. Do not pity me. I don't. That seemed to hurt more. Nora, I need to see you. No, just once. No, I was wrong. Yes, I was cruel. Yes, I was afraid of being nothing. I know, his breath shook. Then why can't you give me one chance to prove I understand? I looked at the aircraft stairs because some chances cost too much. Because understanding after exposure is not the same as remorse before consequence. Because he had not confessed when I cried in the terminal, he confessed when the cards stopped working. Because I am not the runway you get to crash on while learning how to land. I said silence, then he whispered, "Did you ever love me?" The question was so unfair that for a moment I could not answer, not because the answer was no, because the answer had filled years. Yes, I said. He exhaled. But love is not retroactive permission. I continued, it does not make the theft smaller, it does not make the lies softer, it does not make the woman you chose disappear from that staircase, it does not give you my company, my house, my name, or my future. Nora, my attorney will speak to yours. I ended the call. No dramatic collapse, no tears on the tarmac, no music, just my thumb pressing a red button. I climbed the stairs inside Jet 6. The cabin had been reset, no champagne, no flowers, no staged wellness gift basket. A single folder waited on the table, foundation speech, updated schedule, scholarship names. I sat by the window as the door sealed. I looked out at Terminal 1 through the glass. Staff moved in. Clean lines, Olivia at the counter, Grant near security, Beth visible in operations above. The company was not healed, neither was I, but both of us were moving under our own authority again. The pilot's voice came over the cabin speaker. MS, Caldwell, we're cleared for departure. MS, Caldwell. I leaned back. The aircraft began to move. For years, I thought freedom would feel like triumph, loud, bright, a final scene with everyone watching. Instead, it felt like a plane taxiing at dusk, controlled forward, not asking the ground for permission to become sky. As Jet 6 turned toward the runway, my phone buzzed one last time before airplane mode. A text from Elaine, he says he has nothing. I looked at the message. Miles had a mother who might eventually tell him no, a lawyer, a career wreckage he could examine if he ever became brave enough, a name that no longer opened Caldwell doors, a first love who had left when the fuel ran out, a family learning the cost of loyalty without money. He did not have nothing. He had exactly what he had built without me. I typed back one sentence. Then he can finally see what was mine. I switched to airplane mode. The engines rose, the runway lights stretched ahead, 2 clean lines into the dark this time. When my aircraft lifted, I was on it, and no one else had chosen my seat.